to speak to Taunton Town Council. I'd just like to start questions from the general public. Please be aware we have a very full agenda this evening, so we'll be restricting comments to 3 minutes maximum. Thank you very much. Just do the housekeeping announcements first before we go on to that. I'd like to advise everyone present, if you hear a long continuous siren, this is the fire alarm. Please don't pack up your belongings. You should leave the building through the nearest and safest exit, by the back of the office through the police stairwell. If this route is blocked, you should exit the building through the main marble staircase. When exiting the building, proceed up the ramp and turn right. All attendees should congregate at the rear of the top car park, where register will be taken. Wait until you are told it is safe to re-enter the building. If you are a councillor, we have added you to the register. If you are a visitor and have not signed the register, please do so now. Additionally, whilst the fire alarm is sounding, do not use the lift to exit the building. Can I please remind everyone to please put your mobile phones on silent mode, put the phone away for the duration of the meeting, thereby avoiding interference from your iPad or with the microphone. This meeting will be recorded and live streamed on YouTube, and therefore when speaking, please remember to speak clearly. As the chair of the meeting, I have the discretion to terminate or suspend recording and live streaming if, in my opinion, continuing to do so would prejudice the proceeding of the meeting. Recording and live streaming of confidential items will also not take place. To alert me as chair of the meeting that you'd like to speak, please raise your hand and wait for me to call on you before speaking. Please remember, if you leave the meeting for any reason, you will not be able to take part in the vote on the item that is being discussed at the time. Members of the public will be able to view the live stream of the meeting via YouTube. Please can I request that when speaking, you make your points as succinct as possible to allow for the smooth running of the meeting. Can I also take this opportunity to remind you to be polite and treat each other with respect at all times. Thank you. So we'll now proceed to take items from members of the public before we progress the meeting proper. The first question that has been advised in advance is Mr. David Orr. Can you please come up and use the lectern? And as I say, it's 3 minutes each, please. Maximum.
When did you put this on? No. A 3-minute statement, yeah.
Thank you.
Last February, I asked this council to limit its council tax rise to 5% following the previous 173% increase, which resulted in my council tax going up by 13.6%. Right, I'll start again. I asked this last February. I asked this council to limit its council tax rise to 5% following the previous 173% increase, which gave me an overall tax of 13.6% rise. The proposed 9% rise this year is closer to 10% than 5%. It's far less egregious than Bridgewater's 40% proposed rise under their neighbour town council. We are all merely tinkering while social care in Somerset and across England is on a burning platform. There has been a collective failure by all parties to address the social care crisis by implementing Professor Dilmot's recommendations made 14 years ago in 2011. Labour committed to implement a care cap, yet now they have kicked this critical issue in the long grass with yet another inquiry reporting in 2028. I would go further. Social care should be incorporated into a national care service and removed from local councils and the shortcomings of the council tax system. Oh, for the reforming government of Clement Attlee in 1945, whose achievements in forming the NHS, pensions, welfare as a safety net, and building 1 million new homes, 80% of which were for council rent, put our current batch of politicians with their missions, milestones, and spin to shame. Imposing remote mayors without meaningful consultation, particularly in regions with little public recognition or identity, distracts from more urgent issues. These mayors risk adding another layer of bureaucracy and confusion, coupled with yet more council tax increases to fund them. Delegating transport and other services without sufficient budgets, as Somerset Council has done with Taunton Council, is not true devolution. It is merely burdening taxpayers with higher costs for the same service. With the mayor and staff, we're effectively returning to 3 layers of local government in Somerset without addressing the underlying social care crisis. In Taunton, we're rapidly creating a mini district council while removing the clarity of who does what with a unitary council system. One council owns Vivery Park, while another opens the gates, mows the grass and plants the flowers. The social care crisis is no excuse for the poor performance of the new Somerset Council in delivering savings from the merging of 5 councils into one. In the year before the unitary council was formed in 2023, the out-of-date 2021 outline unitary business case was not implemented, nor was a new operating model drawn up. These are serious management oversights that prevented the new council from hitting the ground running. Despite a financial emergency, rationalising 5 organisations into one unitary council is running about a year behind any dynamic commercial timetable, with an annual saving of 40 million for 2024 to 25 missed. Investment assets are being sold by this council as a self-declared distressed seller into a difficult market, realising losses, some substantial, while losing the income and worse still, retaining all of the debt and interest we paid off for 40 years to come. How is that sustainable? The social care crisis remains unaddressed. We pay more for fewer and worse public services, with austerity 2.0 on the horizon. What's the point of voting if nothing fundamental changes for the better? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. You'll be aware as Deputy Mayor, I couldn't possibly comment, but I'd like to call on Councillor Tom Deacon, our leader, who will respond.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Orr, again for another really thoughtful comment to this council. And I do appreciate the early submission and the research that goes into your submissions. It is really valuable. As you rightly recognise, we committed to last year's increase, which I appreciate was substantial, as being a one-off, and I'm really pleased that this year's budget is a far lower potential increase that we're proposing, and actually confirms and supports our ambition of last year being that one-off to put us on the right financial footing so that we can continue to deliver for the town. And I'm really comfortable that we've been able to do that over the past year, and this budget in front of us today will enable us to do that over coming years as well. And you rightly recognise what neighbouring councils are suggesting, parish and town councils around Somerset, and I'm pleased with the budget that we've been able to put together and we'll debate later on in the meeting. With regards to the rest of your statement, I have huge sympathy actually with the vast majority of it. I couldn't agree with you more on social care, and fundamentally until the social care challenge is solved in this country, the funding issues that persist across the government will persist. It absolutely has to be taken front and centre and sorted. And I think your ideas around being taken into the national care centre, I think there's legs in that. And I hope our national government do something about this, because they know as well as we do how much this challenge needs solving, and they cannot continue to kick it into the long grass. Linked to that, of course, is just the council tax system itself. My personal view is that it is just fundamentally unfair. We're basing a system on 1991 property prices. It's crazy. I wasn't even born in 1991, and yet that's still the basis. Sorry, everyone. I think it's balmy that's still that fundamentally needs addressing as well. I also have huge sympathy with you in your comments on regional mayors. Another layer of complexity. Actually, sort the fundamental problems. Don't add more layers to the problems that already exist. I agree with you. As becoming a mini district council, I have some sympathy with that comment. I think that's largely driven by 2 things why that might be the perception. I think one is the size of us as a town. That Taunton, I believe the figure is 10% of Somerset's population. So we are just a large urban conurbation that we are responsible for within this town council. And I think actually it demonstrates our ambition as councillors, that we want to make sure that we continue local services that may otherwise be at threat. So I think we've been quite ambitious in our early days. We are still less than 2 years old, but I don't like the alternative vision, particularly thinking back to the last 12 months where we had opportunities to not take things on, and that would have meant a town with no CCTV, no visitor information centre, no floral displays, our grass not being cut as often. I just think there were choices that we made, which I look back on as being the right choices for us to take on for the residents of Somerset. There are fundamental challenges in here that need outlining. I totally agree with you, but I do believe, I probably would say this, but to your question of what's the point of voting if nothing changes, I fundamentally do believe that things are changing through this council, and I believe that's supported by councillors around the table of all parties who I think are sat around here genuinely wanting to make a difference for our town, and I think early evidence is showing that we are.
Thank you. I'd now like to call on Mr. Brian Larkham. Please come up to the lectern. Not here. Pass on. Mr. Alan Devner.
Hello, everybody.
Good evening.
Nice to be here again. Haven't been here for quite a while. I'm here because I'm very worried that we're sort of sleeping whilst there's a dismemberment of local government. As you know, the county council's talking in terms of £40 million in cuts on top of about 30 million the previous year. And of course, it's a bit of a surprise, I think, from the previous speaker that the Taunton Town Council is still wanting to talk in terms of development. I'm not against more services, certainly not. But because that front page, which you probably know, there's a 9% increase. As a retired mathematics teacher, 9.91 is much closer to 10 than 9, but that's another problem. But what worries me is from past experience of being much an organizer for protest in this area, particularly the poll tax in the old days, and when we had cuts, as you know, with the Tory government, we had austerity and massive cuts. And now we seem to be having massive cuts. The main services come from the county council, not from yourselves, but we've got massive cuts. And Taunton Town Council, as far as I haven't heard anything from you, that you're organising at Taunton level, because Taunton is the centre of Somerset, a massive protest against the dismemberment of local government. And the proposals that are coming out of the Labour government, I'm no friend of the Labour government, as you know, I'm a Green Party activist. I mean, what's coming out from them is an absolute joke. I mean, the last thing on earth you want when you're facing climate ecological catastrophe is to talk about bigger is better. It isn't. Bigger is definitely not better in times of crisis. We've got to think in terms of reorganising ourselves at parish level, street level, where people can cooperate together extremely closely to combat maybe scarcity of food, scarcity of all sorts of things, because when the climate change really hits home, it's going to be a big surprise to many people. But I mean, I'm hoping Taunton Town Council can actually explain why you've gone for developments and extra services, which normally I would welcome, but the 9% or 10% extra to me is about £30 a year. And last year I paid an extra, this is the council tax bill itself, the whole bill, not just Taunton Town Council bill. I mean, but last year I paid about an extra, nearly another 40 something pounds extra. And I'm a person that's on very fixed income. All I have is a state pension, and I have a little bit of occupational pension that takes me just above the pension credit level. So I mean, I've just lost £200 for that to help me with my heating. So I mean, I'm just worried that what I want you to explain is how it is you've come to the conclusion that once again, Taunton people in Taunton Town Council suddenly can still be loaded up with a 10% increase. As somebody previously said, I mean, 5%. I mean, this is way above inflation, and the extra services we're getting, yes, but we weren't consulted about these extra services we're getting.
Mr. Devon, I'm sorry, I've got to ask you to wind up, please.
I can quickly wind up. So what I want to know from you is, how do you explain yourselves to people like myself? And how do you explain why there isn't a tumultuous protest coming out from councillors? I mean, you're the ones who're supposed to be looking after our services regarding the enormous cuts that everybody's facing, paying lots more money for less services. This is an absolute disgrace. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Devlin. I'd now like to ask Councillor Deacon once again to respond.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Mr. Devlin, for your comments, and thank you for coming along. I didn't see them in advance, so bear with if I missed something that you mentioned in your commentary. With regards to your emphasis on community-driven solutions to local problems, I couldn't agree more with you on that. And I think as a town council, we have a really key role to play in making sure that our community are actively engaged in solving the problems that we have in our town. And I would like to think that some of the early evidence of us doing that and consulting with our residents demonstrates that commitment. We really want to be operating at that local grassroots level, really listening to the members of the public who live in our town. So I couldn't agree with you more. And linked to that, that's why one of our big drivers has been services we are taking on. So whether that be cleaning our public toilets, whether that be cutting the grass in our parks and open spaces, is we want those services to be in-house and the responsibility of the town council, not funding a third party or private company to operate those services. So I'm really pleased that part of the budget proposals this year are to enable us to bring more of those services in-house so that we have more control over how effective they are, how much value for money we're getting, and ultimately where they're working and where they're not across the town. We took the toilet cleaning in-house a few months back, and I think our officers will support me in saying that we've seen the number of complaints drop, and interestingly, the number of compliments go up. And that's just the start, because we've now got our renovation programme to start as well. So I'm really confident that the steps we're taking are enabling that community-driven approach, make sure we're really having a say in what happens. The budget figure itself and pulling together the budget and putting a proposal forward is always a really, really difficult balance for us as councillors. It's really difficult because I absolutely hear your concerns around the increase of 9-10% that are proposed for the two options this evening, or the kind of 44-57p a week on depending on which band you are. I also often hear from people that they don't think things are happening enough in the town, and for us to be able to deliver more, we do also need some funding to go with that. So it's always a really difficult balance. I'm really proud that we stuck to our commitment that last year's large one-off was a one-off. But I do hear your concerns around asking people to pay more for less, and I do refer back to Mr. Orr's comments where I'm afraid to, sorry to repeat myself, but until fundamentally the social care crisis is fixed in this country, local government funding across the board will continue to be in this position.
It's the protest, sorry, you didn't answer it. Oh, we're not all protesting. Why aren't we fixed as date for March through the town?
I'm sorry, we have to move on. But thank you for your comments, and thank you, Councillor Deacon. I'd now like to call on Mrs. Brenda Weston, who would like to say something.
How do you mean me as precious?
Of course.
I'll try and speak quickly to get it in my 3 minutes. I'd like to repeat my thanks to all the staff involved to facilitating the opening of the Pound Stretchers Park. It's amazing what can be done when there's a will. May I now ask who's going to maintain it to keep it safe for public use? Previously, I spent a long time trying to find out who did maintain it and the path further down that goes towards French Weir. Apparently, nobody did. Response from the council said, Somerset Council said, as you can see from the map attached, Somerset County Council, now Somerset Council, and most of the path is not owned by Somerset Council. Our footpath inspector has looked at the section by Clarence Street. He's also inspected the area around Slipway and the footbridge that was, and the rest of the land by the telephone box behind the new Riverrain Lodge. None of it belongs to Somerset Council, or the former Somerset Western Taunton Deane, or the former Somerset County Council. To our knowledge, we would not maintain the area of land to which we're not responsible over the last 20 years. We hold no record of that. That concludes my internal review. So nobody cleared it, cleaned it, maintained it, but we know somebody did. I asked the firm that had the contract to clean the streets in the town, and at first they were friendly and helpful, and as soon as there appeared to be a problem, they backed off and now ignore me. May I ask Taunton Town Council, therefore, to continue its efforts to add this path to the definitive map to avoid this omni-shambles, and also because the status of the path now is permissive. The owner of the path can close it at any time of their choosing, and there's nothing you'll be able to do about it. While we may feel safe with the present developers, do they own the land? Any change of ownership may close that path at a whim. And Somerset Council has been sent a reminder to all parishes that they have the power to look after their own rights of way in the parishes. Parishes can assert and protect paths in their land, in their area. So should the town council be considering employing a footpath person, may I ask that the person is a qualified member of IPRO, the Institute of Public Rights of Way Officers. Only then will we get correct advice and actions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Weston. Some very interesting points. Sorry, Prentice. Oh, I'm sorry. It's the wrong name on my form. I do apologise. Councillor Deacon, would you like to respond to those comments?
Yeah, absolutely. Likewise to the previous point, I haven't seen this in advance, so Brenda would like me to get some more detail to you afterwards. I will do my very best on the knowledge that I do hold. Firstly, I want to thank you for all of your ongoing engagement with our team and with our councillors and your support for reopening a stretch of pathway. We know how important it is, and we were really pleased that the developer worked proactively with us on achieving that. We don't always speak highly of developers, but I have to say in this case they were huge. They engaged with us really well and made that happen, and I think they should be commended for doing so. I know that when that happened, there were some early concerns around the safety of it and the overgrowth that was existing, and I believe it was our team who went down and did the first cut to make sure it was safe for the public. So I'll probably ask our ops assets manager just to look at the ongoing management of that path and whether that's something we can roll into our management of Goodlands Gardens, which is nearby. Now that we're taking that service in-house, the cutting of the grass, given it's nearby, we might be able to do something to just make sure that that stretch is kept well maintained. Can't promise anything, but certainly we can go and explore that. I am also aware that the developers plan to improve their section of it and their part of the path. I think there's work underway that they're looking to achieve so that their side is also well maintained. With regards to the future of the path specifically, my understanding, again, we can get you more details on this, is that there's a fine balance to be found between keeping the footpath open for people who need it, but not holding up or causing any obstruction to important flood defence works that are planned in that area, and the development that is planned on that site as well, which there are plans due to be submitted soon. So I hear your concerns around keeping the path open for the long term. I agree with you. I also think we need to be cautious that we don't inadvertently cause another problem for the town by drastically delaying the development, as I say, flood defensive plans that might be there. So happy to continue working with you on that. But thank you for coming this evening. Thank you for all your engagement so far.
Thank you, Councillor Deacon, for that very full response. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak? Thank you very much. I will now move on to the agenda proper. Apologies for absence. We have Councillor Garside, Councillor Evans and Councillor Richard Lees. Are there any others? Those are the apologies for absence. Which brings me on to item 2, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations that councillors wish to make at this stage? Thank you. I now move on to item 3, the minutes of the last meeting. To approve and sign as a correct record the minutes of the previous council meeting held on the 10th of December 2024. Do I have a proposal? Thank you, Councillor Tully. The seconder, Councillor Fernandez. All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions?
Chair, can I just add on the minutes?
Yes,
it's a slight amendment need to go on the minutes. On the minutes, it said I was present at the meeting, but it also, I mean, the apologies as well.
Yes. Duly noted, Councillor Fernandez. Other than that, everyone has approved them as a true and correct record, and so move on. That's confirmed. That takes me on to the referral of minutes. To note the minutes and actions arising from the committee shown below, and to note the minutes and actions. Please note any committee minutes referred to the full council requiring approval will be listed separately. So we will start with Finance and Governance Committee, which last met on the 19th of November 2024. Just listed as referral. Okay, so we'll take it on block. That's the Finance and Governance Committee, Planning, Development and Licensing on the 21st of November 24, the Grants Committee on the 11th of November 2024, and Operations and Assets 7th of November 2024. Please note that any committee minutes referred to full council requiring approval will be listed separately. So taking those on block, do I have a proposer? The Deacon, do I have a seconder? Councillor Firmin. All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? I declare those minutes unanimously confirmed. Thank you. Takes me on to item 5, to receive any communications or announcements from the town mayor. Now, Councillor Garside has given apologies for absence because she's away at the moment. So it falls to me. I haven't had a report this time from Councillor Garside. Sorry, my memory is going. Yes, so I'm not proposing to give a report on what has happened with my mayoral commitments, but I would just like to make a couple of announcements which I think will be of interest to all members of the public as well as to this council. First of all, on the 27th of January, it's the Holocaust Memorial Service at St John's Church from 12:30 to 1:30. Council is always represented there, as well as many faiths, and it's a very important and moving event. So I just mention that in case anybody wishes to go along. It's St John's Church, 12:30. All members of the public are welcome. And that then brings me on to the 15th of February. Town Council is involved in an event called Taunton Swimathon, which started again last year, I believe, after a number of years missing following COVID. It was originally organised by the Seroptimists Association. They are no longer active, as I understand it, in Taunton, and it's Taunton Round Table and Taunton 41 Club who come in to actually organise it. Town Council have a team, and I'd just like to briefly call on Councillor O'Donnell, who'd just like to say a few words about the Swimathon.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, the Seroptimists are involved. It's actually the Seroptimists, the Round Table and 41 Club, all three of them. On behalf of the Mayor, I have entered a team, and I am the team captain. Chief have named us the Mayor's Mackerels. You didn't know that before you signed up, did you? So if I could just introduce the team, we have Councillor Smith-Roberts, we have Councillor Firmin, I'm the team councillor, but we also have Craig and Mel and Jack Baldwin. So we are raising money. So at present, instead of the Just Giving page, we are raising money. Well, the three charities are raising money for the Duke of Edinburgh scheme that the Somerset Council run, which is primarily for disadvantaged children. So if anyone here has done D&B, you know how valuable it is, but there is a cost to it, and not all children can access that. So Somerset can help, and so we're raising money for that. For a group called Stand Against Violence, and also we're raising money for the Link Centre in Halcombe. So if you see a Just Giving page coming your way, please support us. No need to turn up to watch us swim, I hasten to add, or sink, but do support other ways. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell. I think you're aware Councillor O'Donnell, when in his year as Mayor, was very active in many sporting events on behalf of the Council. We all thank you for your efforts, Nick. These schemes raise a lot of money for local charities, and we're very happy as the Town Council to support. That takes me on to item number 6, to receive any communications or announcements from the Leader of the Council. And I'd now like to call on Councillor Deacon to introduce the topic. Thank you very much, Tom.
Thank you, Councillor Strauss. I'll be very brief because people are probably already getting fed up with my voice. But I just want to say that I hope everyone had a wonderful Christmas. And it feels like a long time ago, but I hope you all had a good Christmas break. And just take this opportunity to wish you all a happy new year. It's the first meeting for council this year, so happy new year to you all. The only other thing I'd like to mention, which I'm just delighted, and I know we talk a lot about public toilets in this room, but I'm delighted that work is starting tomorrow on the Cannon Street toilets and the toilets in Hamilton Gould Park. We said as a council that was one of our key commitments, was improving and renovating our public toilets, and I'm delighted that work will be kicking off on those as the first of, I hope, many projects to come in our town and delivering a really important improvement. So a huge thank you to Councillor Smith-Roberts, Councillor Hughes, everyone part of the working group who's helped to make that happen. I think it's an amazing achievement that we've got there, and look forward to trying the new facilities out, but that sounds not at the end of March when they're open. And that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Deacon. That takes me on to the individual committees. I'd now like to call on Councillor Conor Solly, who's the Chair for Planning, Development and Licensing Committee, to report on the meeting on the 19th of December 2024.
I think Ed's actually going to be taking this one over actually, because I wasn't at the last committee.
Thank you very much. I now call on Councillor Nick O'Donnell, who's the Chair for Operations. Oh, so sorry. So sorry.
Thank you. Yes, so we met on the 19th, and we had a couple of updates from various groups that report to the committee, such as the Steward Working Group, who are still working out the level to which Taunton Town Council would adopt certain community assets, such as community halls, some parks, or possibly even the sites which are the flood defence, some of the flood defences. So that work is still ongoing. We had an update about Goodlands Garden Bridge, detailing the results from the consultation and looking at some of the options that are available for possible replacements for a new bridge. So we made a recommendation that will be discussed tonight. We looked at the rights of way application that went along with the pound stretcher path, and we continue to support that the application would be paused, but we would still keep it within the back pocket to bring back out should any changes be made to the timeline concerning the flood defences work, or any possible future closure of the path from the developer. We also reviewed 13 normal planning applications and 3 licensing applications.
Thank you, Councillor Furman. I'd just like to apologise to Councillor Solly. My hearing is not always what it should be. I missed the black cloud. I'd now like to call, do we have to, it's just reports, isn't it? We don't have to vote. I now call on Councillor Nick O'Donnell, who's the Chair for Operations and Assets Committee, who met on the 9th of January 2025.
Yes, thank you, Chair. We haven't seen that long ago. There's nothing too much to report, as its main item of business is our last item tonight. I would just quickly say there was an update on our speed indicator devices. We are planning to buy another 3, and Paul Grant has been around our town and identified key sites where those 3 can go, but also potential future sites, because the aim is to rotate BSIDs around the town. We did, can I talk about the working group parks that met? This comes under it.
If it's brief.
Very quickly. So under the operations and assets, we have the parks working group. This is in response to the report we had done on all our parks last year. We met for the first time, and we've got another 6 weeks where officers and the councillors involved will rehabilitate themselves with the report that was written and look at it in detail. The aim is that we will invite the councillors from the wards of, as we come to discuss the park, we will invite the councillors of those wards onto our committee, just as guests for that time. There was a bit of discussion as to how we go proceed. But I think at the end of the day, we have a report where our parks were evaluated in terms of their inclusivity, their play value and their accessibility. They were scored. The aim of our group is to look at those parks, see where they scored. Some parks scored well in some areas, medium in some areas and poorly in others. And the aim of this group is to see what we can do to improve the scores. So it's a very objective and very strategic element to it. Please do, in your wards, go and consult with your residents. But I think Ed Furman, Councillor Furman expressed it best. When you're going to your wards, ask them what their experience is of their local park. That's probably quite informative. You use a park, what's your experience of it? And Councillor Ellis also thought, yes, and see if they've got anything they would like to feed into the discussion, rather than simply going and saying, what do you like? See if they can talk about your experience, and hopefully that will help us gauge, how best to move ahead.
Thank you, Councillor Donald. That's certainly food for thought. Thank you. I'd now like to call on the Finance and Governance Committee, either Councillor Ray Tully, the Chair, or Giuseppe Fraschini, the Vice Chair, in respect to the meeting on the 17th December 2024.
Thank you, Chair. My Deputy Councillor Cini held that meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Fraschini.
Thank you, Chair. Keep it short. It was on the Wednesday, the 11th of December 24. A number of items came forward that are forming part of this meeting tonight. First agenda item, of course, I was delighted to see was approved, was the additional funding for private library, and of course everything else was put forward as noted and recommended to come to this meeting tonight, forming part of this budget meeting. So that's pretty much it.
Thank you very much. I now call on Councillor Amber Packer-Hughes, who's the Chair for the Grants Committee, who met on the 6th of January 2025.
Chair, yes, it was a really productive meeting. We reviewed the budget as we had no donation requests this year and no donation given. We had £2,500 left and agreed to transfer that across to the general grants pot. We had only £732 left in the sponsorship budget, giving us a total of £19,444 left from the year's budget. We have 9 applicants, and they were all successful either in full or partially, with the exception of the Taunton Flower Show, who we declined, but on the understanding that we were referring them to the Community and Place Committee, as they are going to be in charge of the budget for annual events. So with the intention is still to support the flower show, but in a different manner than we have done previously. We had applications from organisations like 2BU Somerset, the YMCA, Go Create, so it's fantastic to be able to support a wide range of applications, and that exhausted our grants budget, leaving us with a zero balance to carry forward to next year. Aside from that, we did actually agree to request money back from 2 projects. One was Winterfest, which obviously sadly didn't go ahead due to extreme weather conditions. So having reviewed their end of grant report, we have requested the balance of unspent funds to be returned. That will be added to next year's budget. And similarly, a project with Tone FM for a new transmitter, which has been going on for some time and hasn't to date been completed. So we've asked that they either submit receipts for a completed project or return the funds by the end of this financial year, and they can still apply in future rounds should the grant be ready to go.
Thank you, Councillor Packer-Hughes. I'd now like to call on any working group reports that have not already been covered by the relevant committees. Are there any working group reports? Thank you. In that case, we can move on. Item 8, reports from outside bodies appointees. Are there any updates from any outside body appointees? Thank you, Councillor Fernandez.
Thank you, Chair. It was just a brief update. The Taunton LCN local community network met last evening here, and Chris Hall and Sarah Skirton from Somerset Council attended. And I think just one of the things that as the local network moves forward, is that we're looking at how we move forward, what shape that might be in regards to getting more organisations, community organisations to come to those meetings, particularly in light of the upcoming local plan that is on the horizon, and is Somerset Council are looking for engagement with all those groups, with residents, and the idea is that the LCNs will provide the vehicle to do that. So it's now we've just got to find ways forward to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fernandez. And that completes item 7. Councillor Furman?
Yes, I think either last full council or one of the previous committees, I was, well, I volunteered for an outside body. I think, I can't remember the name of it, but I didn't think anyone else wanted to go for it. But I subsequently found out that the meeting is in the middle of the day, and as I work full time, I won't be able to attend it, so I will have to leave whichever group that was. I informed Marcus of it, and yeah, so.
Thank you for that very precise report. But we do sympathise. This is the problem with the town council, but many of our councillors do work during the day. So thank you very much for your efforts.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yes, it's the Highways Working Group LCN meeting on the 30th of January. Our officers will be attending, so I'm sure that there is town council return that meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marcus. That takes me on to item 9, to receive any reports or communications from Somerset councillors. Are there any Somerset councillors present who would like to provide the updates? Thank you, John. Councillor Hunt.
Thank you.
Maximum of 5 minutes, please.
You, Deputy Mayor, much appreciated. And Councillor Furman, you've just summed up my day today, actually. Firstly, Happy New Year to you all, and I wish you every success in 2025. I just want to talk very, very briefly about the High Street car park. You remember I talked about it last time I was here. It's sort of got worse now. We don't seem to be getting anywhere with a final decision, and I understand some of the reasons for delays. But my other concerns are, and I have put this to Somerset Council and waiting for a reply, but with some push from you guys would really, really help on this. So I get the impression from certainly the residents at Platinum Skies that they now are subject to regular, what appear to be organised skate events. So the guys are turning up with their parents to skateboard around this car park. And I don't blame them, it's a great place to skateboard, obviously, and of course it's not actually physically illegal. So it's quite hard to deal with. I've spoken to the police, so have the residents there, and we're both getting the same indication that there is no illegality here. It's not on public roads, it's actually in a car park. So again, I have asked already that there will be a no skating sign that goes up. I don't know what difference that will make. There's also back to the issue that we had before, it seems to rear up in dark evenings, is the local lads and lasses going around, in whether they're stolen cars, I don't know, but they're certainly burning an awful lot of rubber off the tyres on the cars they're using, and clearly upsetting that, again, the residents in Platinum Skies there, which is difficult for them. So my concern is, as I say, I've expressed it to Somerset Council, and I'll express it to you, is that I don't feel, because the asset is so called for sale, it's almost like, well, my house is for sale, I won't bother with it then, you know. And I'm hoping that isn't the case. But so my question to you is twofold. Firstly, are you able to assist in any way? So the police are very short. They just don't have any police officers, basically, or PCSOs available. I've spoken to PCSO Callum, who I know most of you will know. He's obviously a very busy guy, but does go in there as often as he can, but he's very limited on the time he can do. So I wonder whether they probably do already, your wardens that are out and about around the town, whether or not they can make that part of their daily task. I don't know if they work in the evenings, but it would be very useful. It seems to be after 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, that the upper deck is supposed to be closed. It doesn't sound like it is at the moment. That's a bit of a worry, because cars have been seen up there. So that is a worry. My second question was, last time I was here, you guys on the back of Councillor Ellis's suggestion were to write to Somerset Council asking what's going to happen with this car park and actually supporting the fact it should stay for both residents and indeed retailers of Taunton town. So I wonder whether or not, have you had a reply, and is it a promising one? Trying very hard to hang on to this car park, but every day that goes by, I think our chances are less and less. I know we won't give up, but there just doesn't seem to be any interest at all from the council to actually keep this as a car park. I understand all the reasons, but I don't understand the selling price one, which I won't reveal for obvious reasons, but a bit of a difficult one there. And on a very separate issue, if I may, just very, very briefly, I wondered, with the AI being discussed now by the government, I'm quite keen on that. It has to be very carefully handled for obvious reasons, as to whether this council will be bringing in AI, perhaps on telephone systems or whatever it might be, whether or not you're going to use it yourselves to make things more efficient, perhaps for your staff, and also for perhaps incoming face-to-face meetings and that sort of thing, where I know it's nice to have that, but sometimes it can save money not doing that and using some of these systems. But I wonder where you are with AI, just purely for a matter of interest. Thank you very much, Lisa.
Well, thank you very much, Councillor John, for that very full report. We did discuss the matter of the car park in full council, and we were very strong in our view it should not be closed. I'm going to pass on to Councillor Deane for a more detailed response.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Hunt. Just in response to your question, no, we've not had a response yet to the letter that we sent. But I think, given on the back of your comments, and happy to work with Councillor Ellis as well, I'm happy to ask officers to write another letter from this council, re-emphasising the request for a meeting and detailing the antisocial behaviour challenges that you rightly raised this evening. So happy to do that, Councillor Hunt. On AI, so I know that our team do use some AI functionality already. So without getting too much detail, through our Microsoft package, through Microsoft Teams, we do have the ability to recap meetings and create actions, and all of that is done through recording the meeting through the transcripts. Then our team check that they're accurate and then issue them as actions. So yeah, that does save time in some of that internal process. So yes, we are starting to use it as an organisation. I'm not sure about things like phone system, things like that yet, but we are starting to use things like that where we can to drive efficiencies in what we're doing as a council.
Brilliant, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Deane. Now, Councillor Dawn.
Intro sits within Taunton Town Council, so this what I'll say refers to that. We have the ongoing issues with parking from hospital staff, which we have yet to find a solution to. But Chief Executive Duncan Sharkey did come and pay a visit to the area and observed the difficulties, and has a meeting which was postponed that he will be having with the Chief Executive at the hospital. So we continue to push that and ask questions of the hospital as to how they are addressing it. They do lots of work on their internal communications, but people don't necessarily listen to it. So it's going to be an ongoing issue until we can find some parking resolutions within the area. My suggestion has always been make it so expensive or difficult for people, and they will have to park too far away to be able to walk. Just keep putting more yellow lines, but they obviously displace people, and it's not a really great solution. But yeah, still trying to explore how we can deal with that issue. The Orchard Grove development, which is a big housing development on the edge of Comich Road, has slowed down. Basically, the build out is not quite got the energy behind it that it had. When I've queried this with Somerset Council, they have said that they are not, having granted planning permission, they have no way of enforcing the developers to build the housing. So the developers are saying sales are not going as they would have hoped, and so they're not really pushing for that development to move on at any great pace, which is frustrating given the local housing need in theory. But it's also curious why the sales aren't taking place if there is a need, because a lot of the housing is first home type properties. So some ongoing challenges with the build out of Orchard Grove. The primary school's open, is very successful. We've got a wonderful headmaster there. The green spaces, I know Taunton Town Council are working on what happens to the local play areas and open spaces there. It'd be great to get some more landscaping happening on the site, which could potentially attract more people to live there. There's very little playgrounds for people, young families there at the moment. One thing that has been mentioned to me is the car park behind by the cricket club. What's that car park? Was that Wood Street? Someone has mentioned to me about the amount of potholes in Wood Street car park. I don't know if that. Cannon Street. I don't know if that's on your agenda to address with the works going on at the toilets, but I don't know if anyone's reported that to you. I know it's Somerset Council, but I just wondered if the Taunton Council were pursuing that or not on behalf of any residents who've mentioned anything. Otherwise, I will report it. It's not my patch, I suppose, is what I'm saying, and I just wondered if you were on that. Okay, fine. The only other thing I want to mention is some of the difficulties Troll Parish have had with the response to the local plan, which is a huge big thing that is happening at Somerset Council. It's the first Somerset Council local plan, and Troll as a area was included as a built-up area as part of Taunton, which caused a lot of consternation for Troll Parish Council. Marcus has written to Somerset Council saying that he would have difficulty representing Troll's information, and we're yet to resolve how they are going to deal with that going forward, because I know Taunton Town Council has had its own difficulties with trying to collate information across all its various divisions, but when they've included the built-up areas, which I think included Norton Fitzwarren and Troll, into Taunton Town Council, that creates another layer of complication which needs to get resolved. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Councillor Johnson. I'll come back to you, Councillor Simon. That was a really interesting report. Thank you. Can I pass on to Councillor Deacon? No response. Thank you. Councillor Simon.
Good evening. I'm Simon Cole, so I'm privileged of chairing the Planning West Committee, and so I want to talk about planning. The local plan has been mentioned. It is incredibly important. I urge everyone to pay attention and to make their views very clearly, very plain. This is the plan covers a period of 25 plus years. So we're talking about the shaping of the future of Taunton. So your views would be very, very welcome. And I can't urge you strongly enough to take part. With this question of planning, the build out, there have been some changes to the national planning policy framework. I don't think they go far enough. One of the suggestions the government has tentatively put forward at the moment to put pressure on developers because of slow build outs is to introduce a scheme where if they don't start the build out at a reasonable rate, they lose it. So the planning permission will be taken away. Now, that is incredibly unpopular with the volume house builders because, of course, they are delaying to try and gain the maximum price for each unit itself. So there will be an awful lot of pushback about that, but I certainly approve of the sentiment. Because at this moment in time, the last week's figure, the figure for unfulfilled permissions in Somerset, across the whole of Somerset, were over 13,000. So it's not a lack of planning permission that's slowing up the building. It's a lack of desire by the developers to build them out. So hence, I think that's why the government nationally wants to suggest that if they don't use it, they might lose it. But that will be very, very unpopular with the volume house builders. Volume house builders, as you know, fund political parties, particularly one. In the 6 weeks after Boris Johnson became Prime Minister, the big six developers donated £19 million to his party. So you know there is a huge interest from the big six, or big five now, volume house builders, to continue to control the market, to release it at the rate that gets them the best possible profit. So I urge you to pay attention to the local plan, put your comments in and make sure that your comments are heard, because we are talking about something that has a span of 25+ years, which is really, really important for the future of Taunton and the surrounding villages. And thank you. I'm obviously happy to help.
Thank you very much, Councillor Coles. I'd just like to say a huge thank you to the 3 Somerset councillors who have come along this evening. Oh, we've got another one. I'm sorry. There's a fiddle in the way. I do apologise. Well, humble apologies.
Thank you very much. I provided a written report, I think, for the November Taunton Full Council. I don't know if that one was received. So there isn't really much of an update. So I'm Councillor Fran Smith for Taunton South. I don't think there's much of an update for that area, apart from I did mention that there are regular monthly litter picks, and they will be resuming again in March. So I think it'd be quite good if you could put those words out for that we would welcome more people joining us on litter picks that start from Blackbrook School. Other than that, I think previous councillors have pretty much updated you with what's going on. Obviously, budgets are the main focus for the Unitary Council at the moment, and also the local government review for wards, which I don't know. The only question I was going to ask, I don't know if Taunton Town Council submit anything towards a consultation, or if they are part of the second consultation rather than the individual one at the moment. So I don't know if you have an answer to that, but if you don't, perhaps it's something that you could consider, and if you do have to have comments to raise to the Town Council, I'm sure they'd be very welcome. There was a discussion today at a meeting, and a lot of disquiet, I think I would say, from the current review. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fran. My humble apologies. I couldn't see you behind the pillar. I wasn't trying to ignore you. And I gather that Councillor Smith-Roberts, in your capacity as a Somerset councillor, you'd like to contribute.
Yeah, I was just going to ask whether you were going to go around the unitary councillors here in relation to their areas. I'm Federica Smith. I'm the lead member for Taunton East on the Unitary Council. Some of it's slightly been mentioned by those before me, but obviously we're going through budget setting at the moment. As a unitary council, we've heard different speakers talk about the pressure of social care on not just unitary in Somerset, but across the piece in the country, and how we need action taken on that. I would encourage all individuals to keep track of what's taking place there, because 65 to 70% of your money that goes towards the unitary authority does get spent in that area. So it's constantly being aware of exactly how that money goes. When it comes to council in general, what I would say, we've had some really interesting weather lately, I would say, with the wet and the cold. I regularly see people saying that the unitary authority doesn't take action on potholes, or I would actually encourage people to log them. I logged 3 yesterday, and I had a response today to say that the teams have been out, looked at them, and that they were over to the contractors to be fixed. So it is imperative that when people are out and about to spot them, the unitary authority will take action where needed. It's down to all of us, really. We don't have people going out and about with a magnifying glass or larger to spot them. We need people to tell us, and then action will be taken.
Thank you, Councillor Smith-Roberts. Now, before I come on to Councillor O'Donnell, may I just say on behalf of Taunton Town Council, congratulations on being elected Somerset Council member since our last council meeting. So thank you very much. And would you like to say a few words in your capacity as a Somerset councillor?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Not too many. I represent Robarts and Staple Grove. There is the main issue for us actually up in that area is the development of the Staple Grove site, which I've been working alongside with Councillor Fairman as town councillor. Planning permission, or the variation on their planning permission, was granted last month, I believe. I was there at the meeting, and I think the residents are largely resigned to it and accepting it. They're quite happy that the site traffic is coming in through Cross Keys, that area, rather than along Corkscrew Lane. I think they were very happy about that. They're still concerned about where the business element, the business park, is going to go in that development. It was supposed to be on the edge near Stable Grove Road, but now it's been moved into the middle, and residents were quite concerned about what their view was going to be at, like with their windows, so, and what type of business was going to go in there, and they will have to monitor that quite carefully. So apart from that, it's yes, it's been a I think quite an interesting start to my Somerset Council and going out and meeting residents and chatting. I think the largest issues we have around Roebuck and Stable Grove, really around Roebuck and Wellsprings, is just that parking. Parking is a huge issue now around Taunton, and I think it's something Somerset Council really do need to start addressing and connecting with. And I think there probably needs a bit more resources within the council to help address a lot of these.
Thank you, Councillor Don. And Councillor Ellis, is there anything you'd like to say?
I've got my invite.
When's this one going? I've got two.
I don't know. Yeah, just to pick up on the parking thing, we're still anxiously awaiting the next stage of the rollout of the Musgrove Road residential parking scheme. It is a nightmare and it desperately needs a town-wide solution. I mean, this is absolutely blindingly obvious. Just very cheekily, just to raise a couple of things. This actually was from Helen of Friends of Long Run. And I think it's one that I might bat to us at the town council, because I don't think Somerset will do anything about it. It's about the path, the path across from French Weir to Long Run. So people go along there, obviously, to access the college, and it's a good cut through if you want to get to the hospital, if you want to do some active travel. You can get to the hospital. Well, I can get to the hospital from my house in under 15 minutes through that route. Anyway, it's in a terrible state, and there was I think Helen was out there, and there was a wheelchair user because of the puddles, the deep puddles and that they couldn't get across. And I just sort of think, do you know what? That's the sort of thing where I'm thinking maybe Taunton Town Council can step in, get permission from Somerset. There's a slight complication because they keep delaying everything about Long Run. It's always, oh, well, we're working with the Environment Agency on the flood thingy. But that's all in the long, that's not even in the long grass, it's in the long sort of puddle or lake or whatever, I don't know. So I'm just flagging up that I'm going to be trying to make the case for us to do something about that path, because it's an active travel, very, very quick win that would make a real practical difference. It's about access to the college and Castle School also. And it would encourage active travel because it could mean, you could walk and cycle the whole way across. So I'm just flagging that up. The other thing that Helen raised with me as well was just Fran's jogged my memory. She just was saying that she'd really like us to do, and I think we can, because we did try and organise some little place, didn't we? And then the weather intervened on the selected dates. I think that was lovely Marcus was doing that. But if we could, look at what we might coordinate in the summer, as well as what they're doing in Taunton South, especially around the sort of waterways, that would be really good. There's so much I could say. Car park. I've just pinged Riggers and he's chasing for what the latest is. I'd like us to buy it off them. I think that would be the safest future for that car park. But let's see. And we need sources of income. We need sources of income beyond the precept. Yeah. I'll leave it there.
Thank you. I have to say, as an ability scrutiny user, I did get caught by the flooding. It is, of course, a floodplain. I think what you're saying is a simple causeway could be built, which would actually raise you above where the water floods, and I'm sure that would be of interest to many people in the town. Thank you for raising that. Councillor Deacon.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll be very brief. I was delighted to see the groundbreaking for the next phase of the North Taunton Willoway project take place in the past few weeks. If you haven't been up and had a wander around North Taunton and the council houses that are being built there, please do, because it is amazing the work that has gone into transforming that site and continues to go on. So I'm delighted that the next phase is underway, and those homes really are transforming lives. So we should be really proud that we have them in our town. So please do go and take a look if you get the opportunity. It's been a few weeks of potholes, broken street lights, paths, changes of paths, overflowing bins. So lots of logging those bits for residents. Our next advice surgery as local members is in the community centre as usual, 10 AM to 12 PM on the 22nd of February. That's a Saturday. But of course, if anyone needs me for anything in between now and then, I'm an email, a phone call, or a Facebook message away.
Thank you, Councillor Deacon. So Councillor Price, thank you. Kathy, you'd like to say a few words?
No, I just sent a message that I have nothing particular to report on Taunton South. And I'm sorry I'm late, but I've been running around after grandchildren.
No, it's perfectly understood. Thank you for making the effort to come. It's much appreciated.
Sorry, can I be really cheeky?
Certainly,
Just come
Councillor
back.
Dawn.
Yes, something I'd like
quick.
to put that in. So a number of us as the community scrutiny had a visit to the CCTV unit out at Bridgewater. We had a fantastic presentation and saw all the cameras in action. They've got a fantastic dedicated team of people there. I don't know if Taunton Town Council, as people who contribute to have had that visit. I would highly recommend that you all take the opportunity because they are looking to share what they do with more people. And I meant to mention that, I'm very sorry. But seeing Hazel did remind me, she talked about an extra camera potentially on Overbridge.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Dawn. Could I just ask the officers if we could arrange a visit? I'm sure that would be of interest to go and see the CCTV setup. You'll recall last year, I mean, we have put Taunton Town Council money into the closed circuit television in order to retain it. And Bridgewater is where it's operated from. So I personally would like to visit, and if anybody else would, that would be really great. So thank you for that. Any other councillors from Somerset Council I've missed? Thank you very much. I'll now move on. Item number 10 on the agenda is the forward plan. Members to note the forward plan. Could I ask one of the officers to pull that forward? You'd like to say, Marcus? Move to a vote. Any questions on it? Maybe noting it. Could I have a proposal, please? Thank you, Councillor Furman. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Packett-Hughes. All those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? I declare that motion unanimously confirmed. Thank you. That takes me on to item 11, finance budget for 2025-2026. Councillor Fraschini is going to introduce the recommendation from the Finance and Governance Committee, but he seems to have disappeared. Members have to consider and agree the budget for the financial year, 1st of April to the 31st of March. So, wonderful timing. So, your item on the agenda, Councillor Fraschini. I'll just repeat that. This is item number 11, Finance Budget 2025-26. To call on Councillor Fraschini to introduce the recommendations from the Finance and Governance Committee, and members are to consider and agree the budget for the financial year, 1st of April 2025 to 31st of March 2026. And I'd just like to know if you'd like to say a few words, sir.
Yeah. So the Finance and Government Committee resolved to recommend the two draft budget requirements for 25-26, and they were taken here today. One of them is with the youth minibus, which will be included, which I'm sure we'll discuss for those who weren't at the meeting, and one is without. And also to recommend that the full council consider the precept requests for 25-26.
I'd now like to hand over to Gail, who is going to amplify the situation.
Okay, well, first off, I'd like to hand over to Craig.
This is called passing the buck.
Yes, talk a little bit about the youth minibus. So to put it into context, seeing as there are two budget scenarios, so there'll be some background there.
And at the end of this, we'll be voting on either or those two proposals. So the budget either including the minibus proposal or without including it, voting on the balance of the budget. So Craig, if you could tell us more about the minibus, please.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thanks, Gail. Good evening, councillors and members of the public. It's good to see so many of you out here today. So I've got a couple of slides that I pulled together to talk about the youth minibus. The first slide that you see in front of you on the screens actually depicts what the youth minibus could look like. So this was an image that was supplied by Yates Town Council, who have a very good track record at providing youth provision within that area. And actually it was one of the main reasons why putting in a budget line to support a youth bus I thought was a really, really good idea. So the National Association of Local Councils made contact with many councils across the region to invite them along to Yates Town Council to showcase the youth provision that they provide in the area. It is a fantastic operation that they have there. They invest around about just shy of £500,000 annually to support youth provision. They have a sports centre, they have the Armadillo, which is a youth centre, and they also have their youth minibus. So coming away feeling very inspired from that visit, I have put in a recommendation to include a budget line to support a youth minibus. So the Community and Place Committee have proposed a budget for the youth minibus, which aims to enhance the community engagement, youth outreach, provide flexibility and to enhance youth provision for existing youth providers. This can assist in targeting hotspots of antisocial behaviour around the area and also provide a service to underserved areas across Taunton, with the potential to generate income to help offset the running costs. So following the Finance and Governance Committee meeting, there were a number of questions that was put to me to engage with local service providers to understand actually what their perception of the bus gives. So thank you for moving on the slides. That's kind of you. So what I've put here is I've just colour coded some of the feedback that we've had. Now, this feedback was actually gathered over the Christmas period. So, you know, there were skeleton staff on that we were able to talk to regarding the youth provision. So Youth Unlimited, I'll just go through these very quickly. They do recognise that this would be complementing their existing provision. There was a similar initiative around 30 years ago. They do recognise that there could be challenges with maintenance and storage, but they do strongly support it. They definitely recognise the benefits for underserved areas. Somerset Activity and Sports Partnership have asked whether this is actually seen as a priority over supporting other existing youth service provision. They have suggested more research is required into existing provision and also recognising that staffing the bus could be a real challenge too. The YMCA have responded to say currently they're not sure how it would help their existing youth provision. They would need to understand actually the terms and conditions and the costs before they were able to commit to utilising a youth bus. Somerset Council recognises a positive step towards youth provision, but would require a plan, a strategy for long-term benefits that recognises the benefits with the community engagement and promotion. Slide. Thank you. So the North Taunton Partnership have said, what an amazing idea, very supportive of the idea for their summer youth projects and other times throughout the year. They recognise it would complement the drug bus that's out, which has been very popular, and it would also be seen to support workshops and events. TBU Somerset, not sure if something like this would be utilised due to the nature of their work, but there is an interest. Pro Coaching have said we are pro the idea, but gave some considerations regarding financial challenges, staffing costs, running costs, and potential issues with storage. Suggest a small bus for practicality reasons. And the Brewhouse have said they are supportive of the initiative and recognise that it has potential to improve youth access to arts, particularly events and exhibitions. I was also recommended to make contact with organisations such as Five Rivers. I don't know if anybody is aware of Five Rivers, but they do provide imaginative and stimulating learning environments that and it's believed that there is potential that this minibus could provide a safe environment for learning and education for children who have been victims of neglect, abuse, trauma, or needing specialist mental wellbeing help. So just to highlight some of those key strengths and opportunities. So we recognise that with the youth bus, it has the flexibility and the mobility to be deployed in hotspots of areas, particularly with emerging needs. There is potential for income generation, so driving income through hire or collaborative work with existing youth providers and even out of area providers. And again, community engagement. So youth minibus can be used as a hub for consultations and events and workshops. And it would support outreach, providing an agile approach to tackling issues and assisting in the prevention of ASB. And some of the weaknesses and the risks there. So staffing, lack of interest from service providers, qualified or experienced youth workers, limitations. So with the youth bus, there are only a certain limited number of people that could be assisted at any one time or being at any one location at any one time. And storage. So there's no current formal agreement on where the minibus could be stored, but there are conversations that are being had. Decisions. So if it's not decided tonight, it would be around about 12-16 months before the decision can be revisited. With regards to storage, we are in conversations with Somerset Council. I'm in contact with Jeff Brown, who's one of the stronger community service manager, and he has said that they will do their best to see what opportunities there are with Somerset Council to utilise maybe a space at the back of Deane House, and recognises that Taunton Town Council's commitment to and investment in young people is to be welcomed and supported. And the initiative clearly aligns with the devolution and partnership ambitions with regards to the Deane House car parking. Further conversations could be had with the depot that we have at Cornish Way off Galwington. And there's use of the potential car park outside the front of Deane House. So I just wanted to move into the budget breakdown. Next slide, please. Thank you. So what we have here is we have the cost breakdown, we have the insurance, the electric charging, the motion picture license, because we'd like the youth bus to be able to play movies or play music for the young people to have something to do. And I've added some costs here to show what a 4-year, what the cost would be over 4 years. So when I've made that calculation, it turns out it's £21,750. So let me just rewind a little bit. So we would look to have the youth bus for a minimum of 4 years. So it wouldn't be an annual financial commitment every year buying a new bus. So we would have it for a minimum of 4 years. So that cost then would equate to £21,750 per year. Breaking that down per week is £418, and then £60 per day. So in terms of putting the bus up for hire and making it available to our service providers, I've also engaged with Yate Town Council on what their hire charges are. And they are currently having their minibus for hire for a full day at £99.17, half day £55. So you can see the prices are relatively quite comparative. The next slide, thank you, just kind of breaks down the phase and the approach. So on approval, we would start the research, the planning and the procurement process from the 1st of April. We would then move to phase 2, which would be to look at the vehicle conversion and organise engagement. Following that, we would then roll the service out and then have ongoing monitoring and assessment from September 2025. Other possibilities, I think it's really important to recognise what other areas that this may benefit. So as well as assisting with community events and consultations, where there are no community buildings. It makes it more than just a youth minibus. It makes it a community bus. Youth organisations outside of Taunton would be available, could be potentially hiring the bus for their own needs, helping neighbouring towns and parishes. And there's partnerships with a range of organisations improving relationships between the town council and providers. So I've just mentioned about the corporate alignment. So this really hits the nail on the head on a couple of things. So a prosperous town. So the youth minibus it is engaging with young people and will support their work. It would also assist with the issues that are currently being impacted by the retailers around antisocial behaviour and supporting town centre and economic activity. An engaged community, so working with youth providers and assisting in providing services for young people is supporting our priority of having an engaged community. And a council that delivers, as a council will recognise that youth providers are applying for grants to support and grow their provision. The Youth Plus could be used to further support the work of youth providers in Taunton, delivering exactly what the community needs. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Craig. Anybody, do I call on? Oh, sorry, over to Gary. Thank you.
I assume that you've all read the report that contains more detail, but I thought it'd be useful to highlight some of the key points in the supporting budget. So I've put together an agenda that shows the budget scenarios, the key changes for 25-26, the major projects and investments, any other notable changes, financial implications of the budget on our residents, financial implications for the council, how the budget's distributed, and just a brief summary at the end. So following the Finance and Governance Committee deliberations around the budget, which were already being considered by each of the other committees and scrutinised, the Finance and Governance Committee reviewed the combined budget. And at its meeting, given the lack of understanding, I think, around the youth bus, decided to put forward two scenarios to full council. So there's a scenario involving the youth bus. It's a preset requirement of £6,640,886, which is a 9.91% increase on a Band D property, or 57 pence per week. Scenario 2, excluding the youth bus, is 6,571,886, giving an 8.77% increase, or 50 pence per week on a Band D property. Key changes. So in the current budget, we were paying Somerset Council for public conveniences, cleaning and open spaces maintenance. So the toilet cleaning was actually brought in-house on the 1st of September last year. And the open spaces, currently we're paying in Somerset Council £600,000 current year for maintaining our parks. It's evident from the work that's been undertaken that more work is required. They're basically delivering a basic service. One particular area that's been identified are football pitches, which are in need of significant work to improve their quality and ensure playability as required by the hirers. Staff costs for all of these services have actually been included in the staff cost budget rather than the toilets and parks. The budget includes major projects. So the four major projects that I've ticked up on are the play parks refresh that was spoken about earlier. In this year's budget, there's £150,000 to cover play park replacement. And that's added to the reserves that we've currently got that total 172,000 plus unspent budget from this year. That gives approximately 420,000 available to commence this project, which is estimated to cost in the region of £800 to £1 million. So it's giving us 40 to 50% of the coverage. but we're also seeking to identify external funding opportunities to support the major projects. The second major project is the purchase of Trafalgar House, the freehold there of Trafalgar House. If we're successful with our bid, but we understand that will be subject to a competitive bid. That would be purchased with a PWLB loan, and year one costs show a net expenditure of 235,000. That's basically stamp duty, legal costs, and shortfall in repaying the loan in year one. That drops to £35,000 shortfall in year two, as we don't have the depot rent there anymore, and obviously the legal costs will be work's being undertaken on that, and the business plan will come back to full council. There's a 350,000 additional amount for toilet refurbishment, so to continue the toilet refurbishment programme that started with this year. And the fourth major project is the purchase through an asset transfer for a nominal sum of £1 of the building 2, which is in the former bus station. The costs included in the budget are for refurbishment costs. The notable changes. Obviously, we've included an additional street marshal that doubles the cost to 80,000. Capital projects have been included at 250,000. That's an increase of 175,000. And obviously those projects will be determined by council as we go through the financial year. Tree management and replacement has been increased by £70,000. That covers the cost of the tree survey and any required works to ensure the safety and security of the tree stocks in our open space. Christmas lights, that's extending the offering to cover more of the town centre, and that's been increased by 10,000. Legal consultancy and other professional fees have been increased to 87,500. This recognises the legal cost of the acquisitions that we're making, surveys, and the need to evaluate all of our assets and obtain an actuarial valuation of our pension fund to meet future audit requirements. And finally, the organisational structure. We have a new structure that was agreed by the Personnel Committee, which includes 2 new open spaces teams. Total staff budget for the year is 2.65 million, which supports a staff of full-time equivalent staff of 61.8, and that excludes the sergeant at mess. It also allows for increases in national insurance contributions of 15%, lowering of the national insurance contribution threshold, £5,000, an increase in the apprentices' hourly rate by £2.15 per hour to £8.55, and a 3% national pay rise. Research shows on the final point that we compare very favourably against other large councils in terms of our staff costs as a proportion of the precept, and that was included more fully in the full report. The financial implications on our residents, I'm not sure how clear that's. This shows that in Taunton there are 28,318 dwellings, and of that, approximately 75% are in bands A to C. There has been a tax base increase this year by 2.33%, and that's given us an extra 244 dwellings. Scenario 1 of the budget presentation shows an increase in the band D. If we take that, well, because of our average house, that's where our largest number of dwellings fall, is actually lower than 57 pence per week. Sorry, I put that somewhere. Don't know where I did it. I think it's 40 something. I can get that, but that's detailed in the report. And obviously, scenario 2 gives a lower increase than 50 pence a week because that's for the band D. It is all detailed in full in the main. Apologies. I will find it. So the financial implications for the council. With our growing expenditure comes a need to support more general reserve to ensure that council's reserve policy is met. So we're required to keep as a minimum 3 months expenditure in our general reserve. Also, our earmark reserves are limited and need to be built up as we go along to improve our financial stability going forward. Should budget 2 scenario be adopted, i.e. without the youth bus, the cumulative impact of the unrecovered funds for that would be 3.795 million over the 10-year period. That's the 69,000 cumulative basis over 10 years. And budget reallocations could be made to cover alternative investments once the budget's been agreed, and we've done some of that this year. We've moved monies around to support Prizewood Library. We've moved monies around to improve the toilets at Paul Street, the cost of refurbishment for the depot and for the venue. There are a number of other items included in that. And then the budget distribution, which I don't think anybody can read. That just shows, so if we start from the section 21.1 on the top right hand side, that's central services, which includes office costs, insurance, legal, professional, IT hosting and fixed assets. And then as we move around, then we've got the depot purchase. That's just the depot purchase, including the loans and any income that we would get from the leases that are there on that property. Then we've got the operations and assets, which is equipment and machinery purchases, waste disposal, PPEs, and in central services and operations and assets, there are the staff costs there as well. Then we can move on to community grants at 3.7%. So that's the community, the sponsorship, the venue grants and the youth grants. And then we move around to communities in place. Again, there's a staff budget in there, and that includes Christmas lights, floral decorations, street marshal, climate and ecological, and youth engagement. Then there's the mayor and civic, 0.1% in allotments. Parks maintenance is 4.1%, and actually along with the parks maintenance goes the infrastructure improvements in play park equipment, bins, benches, signs, and tree management. All falls in that area of the budget. Then we move on to service growth and improvement, which includes all the capital projects, the Prizewood Library service level agreement, the ward members' initiatives, and the depot refurbishment as a capital item. And finally, the public conveniences, 6.7%, where we see the maintenance and the refurbishment for toilets. So in summary, the budget has been developed to support the corporate plan. Aside from generating income to cover service delivery and enable capital investment, the budget provides funds to ensure the council continues to build reserves to provide for future financial stability. Income generating opportunities will need to be established going forward to reduce the reliance on the precept. Currently, we only have 2.5% income, which is other than the precept. And should budget scenario 2 be adopted, members should be aware of the cumulative impact of the unrecovered sum of 3.795 over 10 years, more than 50% of the current year's precept.
Thank you very much. Councillor Deacon, would you like to comment on that?
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. I'm really intrigued by questions and comments that colleagues asked today. I would just like to start by just thanking all members and officers for their work and collaboration over many months in pulling this together. We're looking at it today, but it hasn't happened overnight, and a lot of hard work has gone into it. And Gail frequently reminds me that as a new council, we are having to learn fast, and we don't have history to rely on. So we don't know what energy costs have cost us over 5 years. We don't know the cost of things over a longer period of time. So I'm really pleased that, unlike what we've seen other councils, our budget that we put in place last year has been a sound budget. We've been able to deliver this year, and I think that this budget puts us in a good place for the year to come. I mentioned earlier about ensuring that we kept last year's increase as a one-off, and I am pleased that we've been able to do that through this budget. I think that was a really important commitment, and I think it is still an increase this year. I appreciate that the much more relatively modest increase as opposed to last year, I think will demonstrate good value for money, whether that's we've heard more investment in our public toilets, whether that's more money on our parks, keeping important services like CCTV and Visitor Information Centre, supporting more local groups through grants and sponsorship, ensuring our town just looks amazing all year round through whether that be floral displays, hanging baskets, more Christmas lights next year as well, which I think went down really well this year and had really positive reviews. Initiatives to keep our town safe and support local business, and things like the street marshal, I think has been gone down really, really well, and local businesses have been really positive around that. So I'm delighted there's provision in here to add another street marshal and to have some of the points from earlier as well, maybe look at different operating hours as well. In fact, that will give us more flexibility. I think is really important. And of course, we've had to build in understanding and responding of increased costs that we as a council are facing. So like many of our residents at home who are experiencing increases in costs to electricity, gas, water, so are we as a council. So that's also built in here. And as Gail rightly mentioned, we've also put in place a provision for other increased costs that are mandated by government. So whether that be the national insurance increases, which have impacted us at the town council, and apprenticeship pay increases as well, we've built in, and I'm delighted that we have a number of apprenticeships working with the town council. I'm also, as I referenced earlier, just delighted that we're taking services in-house. I think it's the right thing to do and allows us more flexibility. And importantly, we can then shape the delivery of our services. But fundamentally, I think either of the scenarios that get approved this evening, I think are budgets that will support our ambition, that enables us to deliver better services for our residents, and fundamentally just ensures that Taunton continues to be and becomes even more so an amazing place for us to live, for people to work, and for people to visit.
Thank you, Tom, for that very clear explanation. The big issue we have to decide before we can vote on the budget is, do we go ahead with the bus or not? If we don't go ahead with the bus, that doesn't, I'll come back to Councillor Pasquini. If we don't go ahead with the bus this year, it doesn't preclude us from voting again next year. But if we do go with the bus, we know what the precept is going to be that we are claiming. And if we don't go with the bus, that drives the alternative decision. So I'd like to take that in isolation first, and then we know where we stand when we come to decide on the precept going to put forward. Councillor Fraschini.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. So yeah, when I chaired that finance and governance meeting, obviously there was a lot of concern about the lack of detail around the proposal. Just as an aside, these slides that come through, is there any reason why we don't receive them beforehand? Because actually they're a lot clearer, and for people like myself who are visually impaired, it's a lot easier to read on the screen as opposed to ask my screen to the closest screen. So is there any reason why we don't get them beforehand? Is it possible we could do? Because it would be a lot clearer to read. Thank you. So from the slides that I could read, there is uncertainty within the youth provision market that this would actually potentially be a goer for them anyway. And I'm a bit concerned from the finance and government meeting that there were comments around the room that said, well, if we don't spend that budget, we can move it elsewhere. And as I said at the time, we should be budgeting for things that are planned and not unplanned and not speculative. They've said, well, if we don't spend it, we can move the money to another budget line or use it for something else. So I don't see how this is a goer when, one, there's concern within the youth provision market. Two, I still have major concerns that would be stuck in a depot for 6 months of the year, not actually earning any money. And three, I don't think it's going to have the impact, although the idea, I think, is a good idea in terms of what it could potentially achieve, but there just doesn't seem to be the foundation to achieve that in the next 12 months. So for me, I don't think we should budget for something that we can't actually deliver and has so much uncertainty around it.
Thank you, Councillor Fraschini. I'd like to call on Councillor Ellis, who had her hand up first.
Yeah, I thank Craig for the work he's done on the youth bus. I think we need to do more work. I think there needs to be that greater certainty about what we're actually doing, because having a community minibus would be quite different from a youth bus that was specifically targeting, gaps in provision or neighbourhoods where kids haven't got anything to do, so are causing trouble. Do you know what I mean? There's a different, it could be many buses rolled into one, or is it just a kind of higher reality thing? I just would like us to do some more work on this. And I also think that if you can progress with that, we can do some more work. And I know you're organising for some people to go and have a look at the youth bus service. We can do some more work on it and say we felt very passionately that there was that there was a demand from below mid-year or 2/3 of the way through the year, whatever. It's not inconceivable that there might be money in an existing budget line that not the youth bus. This is I'm talking if you leave the youth bus bit out of it. It's not inconceivable that if things progress quickly and we come up with a plan that actually everyone was really super enthusiastic about, it might be that there might be money in another unspent money in another budget line, potentially capital. Could capital be used for purchasing an electric minibus for something or other? I'm just saying it's not, I don't buy the thing, oh, if we don't do this now, we'll have to wait. No, there's a lot of work that needs to be done anyway, even if we wanted to go ahead with it. I think there's a lot of work to be done. So we're not saying no, we're saying that let's develop the idea and see if we can build a stronger case for it.
Thank you, Councillor Ellis. Councillor Furman, you had your hand up next.
Yes, I'd just like to agree with the previous two speakers. There needs to be more work on our strategy of how we would actually use it. A lot of the organisations say they don't have a use for it or they're not ready for it. And certainly, maybe within next year we might be in a better position to possibly go for it. I don't think it's right to include it in the budget for this year.
Thank you. I'd now like to move to Councillor Judy.
Thanks, Chair. Actually, just pretty much the exact same as Councillor Ellis and Councillor Deane. So, yeah, speak anymore.
I'd now like to move on to Councillor Packer, please.
Risk of agreeing with literally everybody that has spoken. I do, and I would but thanks to Craig for it is a really inspiring idea, and thank you for bringing it to us and the work that you've put into it. That really is appreciated, and I can see the level of detail that's gone into it. I'm aware that the difference between us and Yate is that Yate are much more involved in actually providing youth services, which we currently don't. We help other grassroots organisations deliver those services. We don't actually provide them ourselves. So it's quite a big difference. I think there's quite a lot of questions to ask in terms of, yes, we could have it available to hire out for outside Taunton. That means it's not available for our residents. If it's a youth bus, young people are generally only available after school at weekends and in holidays, which is a more limited time. So we would need to be incredibly careful about making that resource available for our residents and our young people. I think there's a lot of work to do. I really feel it needs to have a need from our residents, from our organisations that we currently work with, to make this a really viable project rather than a speculative one, as Councillor Deane said. I really think there's legs in this. We can do some research, but I think we need to do work a lot more closely with those organisations to find out what they need, how they want to deliver it, because they are the experts, not us. And then we can facilitate what they need through that Councillor. That we need to be incredibly careful that we are asking people to pay money for projects that we know that they want. It's got to come from them. As custodians of their money, I think we need to be quite responsible in that. And I think that delaying this for a year is actually quite sensible. And as Councillor Ellis said, we may have funding in the budget somewhere else mid-year transfer if we suddenly find that there is a demand for it.
Councillor Smith-Roberts.
Thank you, Chair. Previous speakers have said a lot of what I was going to say. I think that it's a brilliant idea. We're just not at the right time in the project or got all the information, I think, to make an informed choice in then spending money where we don't quite know where we're going to go with it. Well, I love working groups. So I don't, but I'm wondering whether or not we need to set one up under community in place in relation to keeping this project on track, or at least looking at youth provision in the town. We all know, and we've even heard it tonight when we talk about skating in a certain place within the town. Well, that to me is youth and individuals going about and having a pastime in a place that they feel safe. We know that there's not enough around for youth of all ages, and I'm wondering whether if a working group were to be set up we could then look to do something in relation to youth provision in the town. I know the LCN is looking at it and it's pulling groups together, but we do know that there are gaps in what's available for children. We know that there's gaps available in relation to SEND provision for children. So I'm just thinking that if we pull people together who have a passion or want to play a part, we can then build on this. We could go and see what other councils have got in action, whether that's the bus in Yate, and then see where this leads us.
Councillor Tully, had his hand up first.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to come from a different way. I would have been happy if this had been a community bus. Then I would be much happier rather than a youth bus. For anybody's information, how many people under 19 do you think live in Taunton, roughly? Or what percentage? None of you know. Why not? Right. My latest figures say it's 25%. How many people over 65 live in Taunton? Figure there is 26%. A lot of my constituents are elderly. So if you look at a community bus, that would make more sense. I know Craig has done a lot of work on it, but this is what we've got to be looking at, what everybody wants, not just one small group. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Deane.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, I really pleased with what everyone says so far and tend to agree and also echo thanks to Craig for the work that's gone into this. I think it's a not right now. It's not a no, definitely not. I think it's just not quite right at this moment. And I think Councillor Fraschini is absolutely right. If there's ever any opportunity for us to reduce the burden we're placing on our residents through the budget, then we should take it. And this feels like a sensible option to proceed without proceeding with the youth bus. So I think we should, my view is I agree with that. So scenario 2 would be my preference. I think it's worth noting though, that there would still remain within the budget, even in scenario 2, funding for youth engagement that remains in there. So this isn't all youth engagement that the council wants to do going with this option. It's purely the youth bus, and there would still be an important budgetary provision to support youth engagement through the town. I think Councillor Smith-Roberts has a point, and I know that we've got the LCN chair here about what the future of that working group looks like in terms of the young people. I know they've done brilliant things, but if we can work more closely as a town council, knowing that we've got some potential funding that could help initiate some things, I think personally, I think that would be a great thing for us to do.
Are there any others? I'd just like to make an observation. In my youth, I was a member of Round Table, and we donated a minibus to the local council. The council then took over the responsibility of maintenance. Now we've got various organisations in town. We've got Taunton Round Table, we've got Freemasonry, we've got Rotary clubs, all of which raise a lot of money for local charities, and I stress local charities. So it might be that we could get a donation of the capital cost, and that's something we just might consider. I just throw that out as a thought, but that's separate to the decision as to whether we go ahead with the minibus this year. And from all the comments I've heard, I think it's time that we probably go to a vote on whether or not go for the minibus this year. Nobody else has got anything they want to say. And then we know which of the options we're going to vote for as a preset. So we've got to clarify what we feel about the bus now, whether or not we decide to review it within the year or next year. So I'd like to move to a vote. All those in favour of proceeding with the minibus plan this year, show of hands now, please. All those against? Abstentions? It's quite clear from the consensus that we don't want to proceed with the minibus this year. Now, I wish to stress again that Craig has done an exceptional amount of work. He has proposed that a group of us go up and see the minibus in Yate, which I still think is worth doing. Need to have more research before we make and have another debate about this, but I think there's an underlying feeling that we're not necessarily going to not proceed with this scheme. I just think we need to agree our motives in this and all the other aspects that have been raised. So That now leads me on to item 12 on the agenda, the precepts. So the item says members to agree the precept requests to submit to Somerset Council for the financial year 1st of April 2025 to 31st of March 2026. Now, yes.
You just need to agree the finance budget.
The finance budget, yes, which is based on scenario 2, which excluding the youth bus, just to remind you, is 6,000. Sorry, is that point of order? Councillor Furley's question.
I think a lot of the councillors wanted to raise different questions about the different aspects of the budget beyond the minibus as well.
Fair enough. In that case, I'll continue with comments before we proceed for a vote. Councillor Furley. We're now voting on the budget excluding the bus. Is that correct? We all agree? Thank you, Councillor Furman.
Thank you. Yes, there are a couple, 6 lines within the budget I wanted to just ask a question about and try and get an answer for. The first line is under central services 5112 photocopier. It lists the forecast to be only spending 1,050. No, sorry, 1,500 and budgeted for 2,000. Can I ask where the extra 500 has come from? Shall I go through them all or individually?
It'd be easier to do one at a time.
One at a time.
Okay.
Okay, the costs that we've had in this year to date included the cost of our old photocopier. We've just taken on the lease a new one. So therefore, next year we will have the cumulative cost of that lease will be higher than what we've paid this year for the old photocopier and pot year for the new photocopier. See what I said? Yes.
You satisfy the answer, Councillor Furman?
Yes.
Thank you. Next point.
Next point is also under central services 5136. We've got a listing for other professional with a budget of 30,000 when we spent nothing this year. Can I ask what this other professional is?
The other professional was included this year in legal and consultancy, but part of the other professional is the actuarial valuation of our pension funds as we move towards a new audit regime and other professional fees such as surveys for building 2, those types of things.
Are you happy with that answer, Councillor Furman?
I am, yes.
Thank you for confirming. Next point.
Next point is salaries, and I'm going to take operations and assets because the increase of the budget is is double compared to what the forecast is. So I was wondering if you could explain why there's such a big increase in salaries, not only in ops and assets but across the other sectors as well.
Currently, I think we'll have a staff of 37. The budget is based on a staff of 61.8 full-time equivalents. 12, I think, each of the open spaces teams included has 12 staff in operations and assets. So that's a big amount of staff costs that have come from the devolved services and the facilities that we've taken back in-house. Last year, some of that was shown in the budget 500 service growth and improvement, but that's been now reallocated through the budget.
Happy with that, Councillor Furman?
Yes.
Thank you. Next one.
Next one is also under operations and assets. It is number 6249, waste disposal. We've got a forecast of only £951, but then a budget of £5,000. Surely we could save, £4,000. Can you explain where the rest of that's coming from?
I believe, although I think Paul could answer this better than I can.
So we've got additional waste costs for the various waste streams coming from the public toilets. So whilst we're cleaning them, the contract previously included cleaning plus the waste disposal of the sharps and the sanitary products. those specialist waste streams, so we have a different arrangement for those, which has been accounted for in the budget.
Agree with that?
Yes.
Thank you, councillor Furman.
Um,
Next point.
Then I think you probably actually explained it earlier on in your report, but electricity under operations and assets goes from a predicted of 4,600 up to 20,000 within the budget.
Taking on the depot, and we are uncertain as to how much the electricity costs are going to cost.
Okay, yeah. My final point is about under the Stable Grove Parks section, there's £80 spent on pavilion maintenance. But obviously that park doesn't have a pavilion, so I was wondering what that was spent on. That's what I saw, yes. Yeah, it's under the Stable Grove Manor Road Park.
Sorry, that was a mistake. And when I did the review of the December accounts in January, that was moved to grounds maintenance. So you're right. As you can see, the numbers are very close together, 6300 and 6330. So that's not there anymore.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, councillor Furman. Very perceptive questions, and thank you for your answers. We have a very perceptive town clerk because you wrote on the notes suspend standing orders just before the Goodlands Gardens footbridge project, and within about 4 minutes she's absolutely spot on. So I'd like to propose that we suspend standing orders because otherwise this meeting will have to end at 8 o'clock. I'd like to ask for a vote to suspend standing orders so we may continue with the items on the agenda. All those in favour? Those against? Thank you, that's agreed. You now, do you want to just carry on? Sorry, Nick. O'Donnell?
I was just going to ask a question on the budget.
Are
we still asking questions on the budget?
Yes, I'll take that.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I thought we.
Looking at the budget, I just had a question about the earmarked reserve. So looking at the budget line, we have an earmarked reserve of 1.4 million. That's what it seems to be labelled as. And I know that about 300,000 of that is going over to the parks, because that's money we haven't spent this year on the parks. I was just wondering why we haven't used perhaps some of our earmarked reserve to lower the amount of budget we need, because I mean, just £100,000 from the earmarked reserve would drop our percentage by about 1%. You drop how much we're raising the precept up by, say, well, with the new one, without the minibus, we could drop it down to about 7%. But I'm not sure I fully understand what we mean by the earmarked reserve. I know that on the report there was a section about us having to have so much money, 3 months worth of money, but I wasn't sure whether that was the earmarked reserve or whether it was in a separate fund. And if it's not, if the earmarked fund is just money sloshing around, can't we use some of that to reduce our precept?
So we wouldn't run a balanced budget. There are two reserves. We have a general reserve, which we are bound by our regulations to have 3 months cover of our ongoing expenditure. So that's the general reserve. And then we have earmarked reserves, which are allocated to cover specific projects. And we actually have 1.58 million in there. And most of it is covering specific projects.
If I've inadvertently missed anybody else, Councillor Smith-Roberts.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a few questions and then I'll probably give my view on the budget and just what we're looking to achieve as Taunton Town Council. So a question, and it might be best for Paul to answer this. In the way that we are looking to bring on the 12 additional staff for the open spaces maintenance, and we're needing to buy machinery, that's currently going to cost us predicted greater than what we currently pay for Somerset Council. Is there a way that you're looking to maximise our income streams at all? Or is it that by bringing on those 12 additional staff, they won't just be doing necessarily open spaces maintenance, we will have the fluidity of them to do other work for us as a town council. So whilst that increase is greater in year one, we'll see kind of an offset by doing other jobs and maximising.
Yes, certainly there are one-off costs, as you rightly say. Those are in setup costs, particularly for machinery. It's hoped that the machinery will mostly have a 5-year life cycle before we trade it in and upgrade it. And we'll look at we'll come on to the specifics of that later on in the meeting. It's anticipated that we get certainly our football pitches and other pitches up to a level that encourages people to come here as out of choice rather than defaulting to other places because their pitches are better. We're looking at potentially increasing American football and having setting up a base in Taunton, which is halfway between Plymouth and Bristol, which I believe the other nearest pitches are actually located. So making it a destination to bring that sport and increase that sport within Taunton. And the open spaces team will also be partly responsible for pavilions, which we're hoping to get up to a level to encourage hiring those out, generating income as well. So there's a lot of opportunities to generate additional income. We're also looking at the green corridors that we can form through the town. So a slight change, a major change to the basic level to which we've maintained our parks up till now. So we're increasing the number of green flag applications within our parks and really trying to uplift the whole thing with our in-house resources that we'll be able to manage directly and improve that quality rather than just paying for a basic service, which is what we've done up till now.
My next question is probably for Donna to answer, is in relation to the fact that we can see our staff costs are going up, and part of that is because of the increase in national insurance contributions that the government have put in place, which I welcome because of the benefits that will bring. However, we have seen at a county council level through the CCN, and I think even the DCN, which is the district council network, they champion to say that the local government settlement will look, doesn't cover that. I'm right in saying that for lower tier authorities, we don't receive any form of government settlement. So actually we've got to absorb that cost. Do you know whether NUG or SOG are doing any campaigning around that because of the fact that it's all well and good increasing the cost that we have to pay, but ultimately that increases it on the precept, and it's not just a Somerset problem where unitary and this counties are having to pass on services to the lower tier authorities, but actually this impact has an overall, the impact is overall on the taxpayer overall.
Yeah. Yes, SOUC are working with NAUC to challenge the government on that.
It'd be interesting, it'd be good to be a part of that and kept updated, I think, as councillors, because those unforeseen costs don't necessarily resonate with the general public because they don't see that through the services that they're seeing. So they don't see like the backroom costs of what it costs to run a council. Though what I will say, and you can see in that table that's on page 3, is just actually the small percentage that we spend on direct staffing costs compared to services that compared to many other similar sized councils. I think for me, I would say I actually support this budget. It's really good what we're achieving as Taunton Town Council. We hear about that in multiple different meetings that we all go to. And I think we sometimes need to think not in a percentage, but actually in what value that we're asking people to contribute. 9.9 if we go, because we've gone for scenario 2, 8.7 on a band D is 50 pence a week. So actually we're asking people where 70% of that money that we get is band A to C is less than that. For the sake of 45 pence a week or going up to just over £2 a month, actually what we're looking to achieve as a council is huge. There's things around our play parks, there's things like toilets, and I will wax lyrical about our toilet improvements later on in the agenda. There's also the things that we want to take on new buildings. It's great to see sometimes blue skies ideas such as that I had in relation to building 2. That's the transport hub, that coming into Taunton Town Council's ownership, so that we have a building in the centre of town that hopefully can be used for community use. The fact that we'll take on the Changing Places toilet there. All of that, I think we demonstrate this year, and we're only in our second year going into our third year, but what we have achieved is huge. And by that little bit of money that everyone contributes, and for those that can't contribute, there is the CTRS scheme that looks to support people who can't afford council tax. All of that shows that we can become and continue to be an even more vibrant town than we are. And I think it's a small price to ask people to look to do for all that they will receive.
Thank you, Councillor Smith-Roberts. Councillor Frascini?
Thank you, Chair. I've got a couple of questions and I'll say where I kind of am with it and subject to those. A budget line venue grants of 120,000. Could you, sorry, could you just give me a bit of detail about what that is?
We can hand over to Councillor Roberts to give you more views.
Roberts. Yes, the venue grant is something that the grants committee administer. It's gone to organisations like Brewhouse, Kick It, Museum of Somerset and Coach this year, and it's designed to help with running costs to support the key institutions in the town, but also then host other smaller organisations to be able to support all of that work that goes on. If you think about the number of organisations that run activities through the Brewhouse, the number of clubs and activities that are supported by Kick It and the Arts Hub, who use those facilities. So it's to ensure that those key venues are able to be financially viable. Partly it was in response to the reduced funding from Somerset Council, but it's also something that actually was within our manifesto and within our aims for the town to be able to support those things that we find that and our residents find really, really important. I'm hopeful that other organisations might come forward to be able to use that this year.
Thank you. Also, Gail, you mentioned about being the necessity to be less reliant on the presets and needing to be more commercial looking. What projects within the budget? So I remember last year, first year, we were talking about digitising potentially our town centre and creating a sort of a marketing part where we can sell advertising displays and all sorts of bits and bobs like that. And that would generate quite a substantial amount of money. So I just wondered what sort of things are in this budget to try and become more commercial.
I think taking on the building at the old bus station, there's the opportunity to rent out space there. The purchase of the trading estate where the freehold, we will look to purchase the freehold, so there'll be lease income coming in to cover any loan that we have. As far as the rest goes, I think it's work in progress, and I don't think there's anything in the budget specifically that raises income at this stage.
Thanks for that answer, because obviously the loan, the revenue that come from owning the building that we will own and the estate will obviously pay for the loan, so or be slightly more, we'll have to cover the shortfall. So my question is, given that we know we need to become less reliant on presets and effective, as I said, as I've previously said in this room many a time, our customers don't have the opportunity to say we're not coming back like other businesses do. Ours are tied, and if they don't pay, they end up going to prison. So if we are aware that we need to be less reliant on the precept, which is a burden on our residents, why are we not speeding that on tenfold? Because there is so much opportunity out there to be commercially driven and commercially minded without impacting services. I think that should probably be a priority for us going forward. Because the first call is always the residents will pay, the residents will pay, and they have no say whatsoever. And this comes back to my point about some of the decision making that comes along when there's things where I don't have faith in this budget, because I'm going to go back to the last finance governance meeting when I mentioned the staffing structure and some of the staff roles that have been created. I think there's a lot of overlap within those roles. It's still, I'm at a loss of why you would want to employ an internal comms manager when you have 61 members of staff. We don't have thousands of staff, therefore it should be done within a management role. It's a small organisation compared to what that role typically would be in. And when, funny enough, at the start of this meeting or during this meeting, I received an email, and actually the leader was copied in from the former clerk of Chedentit's Payne Parish Council. Before this town council was created, we had a fantastic community atmosphere. Everybody knew what was going on, things got done, and you had value for money. My residents have no idea what is going on with this town council. This town council is unable to complete a notice board. There is no community cohesion with my division, my ward, and this town council. My ward has nothing in my ward has been transferred other than have been in a notice board, and that notice board is not even being maintained. I have parks that other councillors here that have the opportunity to get money to get replaced. We have nothing. Yeah, but every year the council tax precept is going up, and a third of my wards already pay a maintenance fee because they're on a new build estate, so they're paying double bubble every time, and they're not actually getting any new service. The services that are being provided by us, because we're taking extra money, we're asking for extra money, is generally stuff that Somerset Council can't afford to run anymore. So where is the value for money for my residents and other councillors, residents who are in a similar situation? And this is why I can't support this budget or raising the precept for things that they don't get to see any benefit from.
Or do you want to make a point?
Yeah, just on the point of income generation, certainly from the ops and assets perspective, we're looking at, because of employing the open spaces team and setting that up and preparing for the future, there are opportunities to be commercial in what we're addressing. We can offer services such as white lining other organisations' pitches. We'll pitch for some schools work. We're talking with Wellington Town Council about the opportunity to add their toilets to our cleaning schedule. So there are many opportunities, and if any councillors have any others that they can suggest to us, we'll certainly follow them up in order to take advantage of that.
Actually, first of all, may I say, Taunton Green came back online this Sunday. My Sunday team, who I run, was able to have the first game on there, and credit to the team whoever did it, because they brought it back into a good nick. As you rightly say, our pitches around Taunton historically have been terrible, which is why the uptake in grassroots sports has declined rapidly, because they're too expensive. So I'm grateful for that. And I understand the need to bring in-house a ground staff team to make everything work better, because you can be more effective that way. That is not my issue. I'm just thinking it's very small fry. For me to hire a pitch from Taunton Town Council is £45, but actually really for a Sunday League team or another grassroots team, that's probably your limit anyway. So there's nowhere really to go before you start to impact on take up of grassroots, new teams coming on board, expanding the leagues, etc., etc. Because before in Taunton, 10, 15 years ago, we used to have 5 divisions on a Sunday and Saturday, and now you've got 1 or 2 if you're lucky, and then nothing happens with it. So it's small fry for what you're actually going to make. I'm talking about being commercially minded, whereby we can actually impact and potentially be in a position one day to reduce the burden of council tax on our residents and potentially generate the funds that we need. That is just, it just keeps going and funds all services through commercialism at some point. That will take some time, but that is what we need to aim to. And I think that's what all councils need to aim to. Because this will be the next national crisis in council tax, because it's becoming unaffordable, and that's my problem. Why I can't support it. And sorry, if I may, just in terms of the money that has been asked for, I would hope in terms of my division, where those parks are still with Somerset Council, I would love to see, and quite frankly demand, a fast track of them coming over to this council, so my residents feel that they can actually get something for their money.
Thank you, Councillor Fraschini. I'm going to call on Councillor Deacon, and then I'd like to close the debate and move to a vote on the budget. Councillor Deacon.
There might be some others who wish to speak to our Deputy Mayor who I don't even have the opportunity yet. So I agree with I said he won't be surprised to hear this. I agree with half what you say, Councillor Fraschini, and disagree with half as well. Yeah, exactly. So do I agree that we should be absolutely doubling our efforts on where we can get commercial income from as a council in order to offset burden on residents? Absolutely, of course. And I would be delighted to work with you and officers through this year, if you would like to, on thinking creatively about what those ideas could be. be delighted to, because I think we need to work around the table to put that into place. One of the big differences between us and other large town councils in terms of an income generating asset that we don't have but others do, and it's a little bit morbid, I'm afraid, but it's the crematorium. So lots of other town councils run their local crematorium, and that is often quite a large income generating thing. We don't have something like that, so we do need to work harder, and I think putting ourselves in a place where with some of the assets we are taking on to be able to, I appreciate it's relatively small scale at the moment, but growing it in something larger, I totally agree with you on. Where I'm going to slightly disagree is that residents in your particular area don't benefit at all from the town council. Whilst there might not be too many things in the particular area, I agree, and I would also like us to fast track the parks in that patch, because I think it's really important that we take them on. Residents do benefit from the CCTV that we're paying for. They do benefit from the community centre that we're helping to fund in Priorswood. They do benefit from the important funding that you helped us secure for Priorswood Library. They do benefit from that. They do benefit from the speed indicator device that's in their area. They do benefit from the community grants that we are giving out to organisations that operate in that vicinity. So I agree, there's much more we can do, and I think we as local councillors all have a role to play in helping to facilitate and communicate what we're doing as council, and also receive ideas in from the public to make sure that we're delivering for them in our own areas. But I think it's unfair to say that this council isn't delivering anything. Can we deliver more? Yes. Are we delivering nothing at all? No chance.
Thank you. I am going to take 1 point from Councillor Tully, who did have his hand up for some time, and then I'm going to move to the vote. Councillor Tully.
Thank you, Chair. I'm one of the old-fashioned kind of people, and I'm probably one of the oldest people in the room at the moment. I hate. Oldest person in the room. Sorry. Get me thoughts back. I apologise. I don't like paying council tax. I moan like anything. I get the county's tax bill and I think, I don't have any kids at school. The roads are useless. All the things that I pay, but I have to pay. And this is 50 pence is nothing, less than a bar of chocolate. I know, I used to be a retailer. As far as I'm concerned, I don't like the budget. It should be zero as far as I'm concerned, but it's not going to be. You're not going to get anything done if we do that. So we're going to have to basically take it. I just got 2 questions and then I'll shut up once and all. Yeah. Can I get an assurance that we are only now going to employ another 12 people, no more, for this financial year? Because that's what we've been budgeted to do. That'd make me happier if you can guarantee that to me. And the second thing, sorry, asked an awkward question, and I can see that. The second thing is, you've got the 6 top councils listed. I would like to see exactly where we are on that list and who's above us and who's below us, because this is not these lists. I know every single one of these towns from when I was with the PHLS, and every one of these towns that don't match Taunton. A town like Hertford would match Taunton. I'd like to know what they're doing. It's important, because anybody reading this, it looks as if, oh, aren't we doing so well? Are we number 7 or are we 57 on the list? Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Tully. And I'm now going to close the debate and move to a vote. Okay, we'll just respond to that last point.
To both the points, actually. In terms of the budget, the staff budget, unless the national wage demand increases above 3%, should match the recruitment that we've all undertaken. At the second point, on that, on the councils, there were 21 councils that agreed to respond to, I think it was the SLCC, was it, or now?
No, it was just an actual form and a clerk's forum who would sent out a request for the information.
And so, well, the 20 actually that responded, so that makes us 21, and I think we're number 19. in terms of the lowest. But I will look at Hertford because the information will be available on their website, and I can come back and tell you how we stack up against them.
It's a very good
Councillor
point.
Deacon,
It's a very brief point on those figures in particular. I think you asked a really good question. My understanding is we're comparing as well our expenditure on staffing next year against what people are expending this year. So actually, those numbers will all increase, I suspect, for those other councils as well. So it'd be interesting to do the same review when we've got the full data set, what next year's budget look like.
Now we are definitely going to move to a vote on item 12, the precept. Could I have a proposer? Thank you, Councillor Tully. Could I have a seconder? Councillor Deakin. All those in favour of Plan B? Scenario 2. All those against? Any abstentions? I declare that vote carried with 1 against. Thank you very much. I'm sorry if you feel the debate has gone a long time, but it's been a very critical one. We have to thrash this sort of thing out before we pass to a vote, and I think we've let everybody have a good hearing. So thank you very much for your forbearance. We now move to item 13. Oh, I thought we'd just done that. Oh, I've agreed the budget. We now move to the precept. Members to agree the precept request to submit to Somerset Council for the financial year 1st of April 2025 to 31st of March 2026. Do I have a proposal, please? Thank you, Councillor Deakin. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Amber Packer-Hughes. All those in favour? All those against? I declare that. Any abstentions, by the way? No. I declare that vote confirmed with 1 against. Thank you so much, everybody. We now move on to item 13, Goodlands Gardens Footbridge Project. I now call on Councillor.
So you need to get agreement from the
Thank you. I'd now like to suspend standing orders to allow a member of the public to speak on this specific issue, because he did notify us prior to the council meeting he wished to do so. So do I have a proposer to suspend standing orders? Do I have a Councillor Tully? Do I have a seconder? Councillor Solly. All those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? I declare that proposal unanimously agreed. So thank you, sir. If you do wish to speak, you're welcome to do so. Three minutes, please.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, members of the council, for allowing me to do this. I'm sorry I couldn't be here at the time that I was able to speak before. An interesting too, the point I want to make now comes on the back of this really good debate you've just had about budget, because this next item I think is relevant. And a couple of things too. Staff costs, don't forget the incremental steps you will be paying every year that will grow the number of staff you've got. They're on incremental rate salary ranges, so you're starting in at minimum in most of them, and they will rise. And equally, for the benefit of the finance manager, you mentioned annual costs, monthly costs, weekly costs, and daily costs that got down to pence. I'm a pensioner, and a lot of people are in employment, and they're paid by an annual salary that when you work it down to a month, then a week, then a day, then an hour, it still also gets down to very small pence. So it's relative. With regards to the Goodlands Bridge, personally, I think the Morrison's Bridge project makes good sense and would provide an important part of the pedestrian route between the town centre, the station and the Firepool site, and I'm sure many will use it. It will be
something of great value, particularly with all the plans and the proposals for pedestrian routes from the station and through that route. What isn't anywhere near so obvious is the merit of replacing the Goodlands footbridge. In number terms, the population benefit is comparatively very small. It will really serve those in the flats and vicinity opposite looking to have a shorter cut to the museum and gardens. Those going to town from this area will likely use the newly created quick access to the main road bridge that's been recently refurbished that has wide, flat and safe pavements that take you very quickly into the town. The removal of the old footbridge has opened up the view of the river that long existed, but was then denied by the mistaken installation of the footbridge largely to the car park and supermarket that used to be there, but both of which have since gone. We've seen the installation of the new, very substantial inner relief road bridge crossing the river in close proximity and with safe pedestrian pavements. This and the road bridge, the substantial road bridge we have, and the Morrison projected bridge, and more than ever, will be more than ever we've had before, and more than sufficient. To add another is not needed or completely justified and could be viewed by many as a waste of public money. No matter what the price, the taxpayer will have to pay. With all these things, there will always be a campaigning canvas group serving their particular want. In this case, its numbers are comparatively small.
So could I ask you to wind up?
Yes, I will do. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's comparatively small, and basically it's a bridge that goes nowhere. It'll go to the museum, it'll go to the gardens, but essentially people looking to go to town will use the newly opened route. What I would ask this council, and it comes on the back of the debate you've just had about budget, please think hard about the way you're going to spend money on this or not. Every penny counts. And the angst that you've just debated is a reflection of that. I really think this council should not make the mistake of installing the Goodland Gardens Bridge, and I believe most of Taunton's residents will quietly think the same and will judge this council in doing so. Look at every pound, because you're going to be judged by that, and there are better things you could be spending this on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Could I take comments from the floor, please? Councillor Solly.
Yeah, thanks so much for what you said up there. I really do appreciate it. One of the items that we've actually been speaking about at the planning committee is this item, Goodlands Garden Bridge. One of the main things that I do want to highlight, whether or not this happens or it doesn't happen, that one thing that we're really crucial in the details and material is made out of, or it could be made out of, because one of the issues, the reason why it fell to pieces was, it was made out of wood, over time, if it's not maintained, sadly it breaks and it had to be dismantled. But by putting it into a material that can be, not so much, it would even be a power wash once a year and there's no painting as such, the actual lifespan's longer and, little to maintenance going on per year is a saving to the council, but also so it's actually longevity for the bridge to last longer. So I just wanted to highlight that, whether or not this ever happens or it doesn't, that the actual material and the maintenance going down the line for the next, say, 50, 60 years is definitely our forefront mind.
Thank you very much, Councillor Solly. I should have started by saying that this item is Goodlands Gardens Footbridge Project. Members to consider the following recommendations from the Planning Committee. Resolved to recommend to full council that Taunton Town Council supports in principle commissioning the replacement of the Goodlands Gardens footbridge. Now, Councillor Foreman, would you still like to introduce the recommendation, or would you like an officer to do so?
I'm happy for an officer to introduce it.
Thank you, Councillor Foreman. Marcus?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, councillors. Given the hour, I will just rush through these slides, which I did deliver to the Planning Committee before Christmas and were attached with the agenda. So just to state that obviously you may have noticed that there were some posters which were designed by the comms team. They were posted around the park in August, around the time of the removal of the footbridge, because we recognised that obviously the removal of the existing structure, which had been closed for a couple of years, would obviously generate a lot of interest. What the future would be with that site. We then scheduled a drop in the autumn on the 28th of October, which we held down here on the ground floor of Deane House. We had a really positive attendance of over 30 members of the public and councillors. We also had support from the Fairhurst senior engineer and officers of the council in engaging with the members of the public and getting them to tell us their views with the form and questions. There's just some photos from the information boards that was set up. As you can see there on the information boards, we've got the 4 various options that were in the original feasibility study that you commissioned from WSP. So we really want to get feedback from the public as to what the look and feel of the proposed structure, if it was something that we wish to proceed with, they would prefer. Off the back of the drop-in, we then held a public survey running for 2 weeks, and it asked a number of questions. So how often do you visit Goodlands Gardens? The reinstatement of the footbridge, how would that impact? Would it improve accessibility? Were there any specific features or design elements you would like to see? Are there any concerns? The costs, which were ranged between 300 and 500,000, which is what we thought at the time. Has obviously subsequently been further work done on this, and some of the quotations we're receiving now for the FRP model range from the 185,000 to 215,000. So that cost has come down. Talk about alternative funding methods and any other projects or improvements that you believe should take priority. So just in terms of a survey of the results, we received 166 online responses, which was quite positive. They were in large supportive of replacing the bridge, and this is just a flavour of some of the comments on the slide. So people that used the cut through to avoid the road, access to French Weir, walking and cycling safety. Some interesting commentary there that on the FRP model. Obviously, it's one of the more novel models that are coming forward, made out of recycled materials, and I can go into a bit more depth of that later on. In terms of those that raised concerns, there were commentary that obviously now that the footpath along the bridge has been reopened by the developer, which was discussed earlier, is there a need? Cost. There were concerns over other priorities. The design and shape and any accessibility, the long-term maintenance, and ensuring that obviously if the town council was going to put in the new bridge, that it would be maintained. The summary of some of those that fed back as to how often they visited. These word clouds didn't give too much of that. Strong view that it would improve accessibility. Rating of 7.84 in terms of importance of the bridge to the attractiveness of the town. So then obviously I gave an update to full council back in July and set out sort of indicative next steps. We held the early stakeholder engagement workshop. We've engaged with regulatory bodies such as the Environment Agency, Canal River Trust, Somerset Council, and others. We obviously held a consultation with the public. We've had some engagement with engineering companies and potential surveyors, and we've obviously reported back to planning, development and licensing, and now come back to yourself as full council with their recommendation. So as I touched on earlier, there have been some cheaper quotations as we've done some further work into looking to the the feasibility of the FRP model there. And in terms of putting together a tender package, obviously we'll need to seek outside expertise for pulling together the information for the project bidding. Not an engineer by trade, so obviously a lot of that stuff we'll need to obtain from external bodies. And then the planning committee, there was a slide there around talking about what potential budget pots that the council could seek to utilise. So there's obviously the precept potentially for the community infrastructure levy. And then so planning on balance is aimed to resolve and recommend that the town council in principle supported replacing the Goodland Gardens footbridge. I did send around an email earlier this afternoon with a bit more. So in terms of the survey being influenced by residents of the nearby Riverine Lodge building, there were a number of responses given from that postcode at the drop-in, but of the online responses, which were the vast majority, so 166, only one postcode came from that facility or that postcode area, which I was quite surprised to see actually. And then just in terms of the bridge construction material, let's say FRP was one such option and was the winner in terms of the sticker consultation exercise carried out at the drop-in. This is the preferred solution, the engineer from Fairhurst who was working with us on that day. But I guess ultimately that's a decision for you as councillors to take. But in terms of the tender, the advice that we've received is that we as a council should specify the construction material in the tender. So we do need to make a decision if the bridge is something that you want to go with. Then we'd like to really be made clear that that is the design that we would like to do. They recommend that because of all the bids that all align rather than have various bids for different structures and then trying to make a comparison between them in terms of cost. In terms of commentary on whether the FRP bridge, I think some of the examples I sent around didn't have quite the same design as the Goodland Gardens one. That is technically apparently possible from an engineering perspective, but there are obviously constraints with we can't put a bridge in that was exactly the same as the Goodland Garden one because the design wouldn't meet accessibility criteria now. So not from an engineering perspective that we couldn't do that, but in terms of engineering, it is possible. The existing bridge had 3.3 meters of clearance, so that's from the waterline to the top of the bridge. And it would be understood that any replacement would have around 2.6 meters of clearance, sufficient for existing river users that do use that facility, such as paddleboarders and canoeists, etc. FRP is apparently easier to install. The engineer said 1 day, which I find hard to believe, but made of recycled materials, 40% less embodied carbon. And there is options that we can make in terms of the parapet design if there were particular requirements for beautification there. Obviously, back in April, you gave a 10,000 allocation for a number of studies to be undertaken following the feasibility study. So we got the topographical survey done, the subsurface and investigations, and the structural investigations. So that £10,000 budget has been largely exhausted. Now we've got £667 left. In terms of going forward, the council could seek to use SIL funds to support the expected cost of the bridge, revised now to circa 190 to 250,000. We currently have 363,000 in SIL funds uncommitted, and we will receive a similar amount this year. There is importantly a 5-year timescale from receipt to spend this money, after which it has to be returned to the developer. The council could then seek to replenish the SIL pot by earmarking other funds for community infrastructure needs that may arise in future, example related to new development. This is suggested to be replenished with 114,000 in capital projects and around 77,000 in service growth and improvement, total circa 191. So if tonight is used, councillors support this, we can ensure this project is programmed in and receives ongoing support from not just from myself, but from the wider projects team that's being set up under the latest staff structure. We would start work on seeking to advertise the opportunity to put together the technical materials for the tender package. As I said in the slides, we've received one quotation so far, which is circa 12,000, but our financial regulations will require us to advertise and seek further comparators. We'll also need to appoint a principal designer under the CDM regulations. We also may need to appoint a surveyor to manage any proposed package of works, as we've done with the toilet contract, which has worked quite well on the Cannon Street project. We will also need to do some additional boreholing down to 15 metres before we tender, as this was recommended by the subsurface investigation, and it will cost an additional apparently £5,000 to £7,000. So those preliminary costs would cost around 21,500, and I would suggest that if you as councillors wish to proceed tonight, we would provide some headroom to around 25,000 for that, with delegation to officers to undertake the tender exercise and complete those preliminary tasks and bring submissions back to council for final approval for the larger sum and final approval of the project, which could include the option to not proceed if we were unhappy with the outcomes of the tender process. I think one of the important things around doing the tender process is it would give us a good idea of those costs. Obviously, we've gone away and got independent quotes, but that would also help with that. And also any proposed bridge would need to be taken through independent quality review panel in terms of design and further regulatory approvals from the Environment Agency and Canal and River Trust. Thank you for listening and please take any questions.
Thank you, Marcus, for that very full report. Yes. Councillor Fernandez.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Marcus, for that in-depth report. The Goodlands Gardens Bridge is always going to be an emotive subject. There are a lot of people who are quite passionate about its replacement. However, in the broad scheme of things, 166 responses in a parish of 50 to 60,000 people is quite a drop in the ocean. I don't think it accurately conveys the wishes of the whole parish and I think it only represents a small proportion of residents that would like to see the bridge replaced. I feel that the money can be better spent to actually benefit all of our residents within our parish, not just a small few. It's a lot of money. That particular money could be spent on, we've already heard that we need all of our playgrounds, play equipment, all of it needs upgrading in all of our parks. The SIL monies, we've already heard about Orchard Grove. They desperately need play areas for those people coming in. Some of that SIL money, although it doesn't have to be spent in the area, the buildings that provided it, I believe some of it should be, spread out and spent around those areas. I do just think there are other alternative routes available. You can get to French Weir, you can actually get across the Third Way Bridge. You can use that bridge, you can go via the back via Ickleys on that side bridge and the new bridge and the new pathway that's opened that takes you to the town bridge. So for me, I wouldn't be able to support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fernandez. Councillor Ellis.
Thank you. I think we just need to remember where this project came from. It came from below. This was an issue. People were absolutely devastated when the bridge closed and they heard that Somerset Council had no intention of replacing it. And that's how we all agreed that we would step in and first of all lobby Somerset Council. And then as it's turned out, we've ended up deciding that this is something that we should look into actually doing. And at the time, we thought it was going to be like, you know, 500,000 or something ridiculous like that. And now we find out that it's around about 200,000 for a structure that is absolutely vital to this town that would last for 125 years. And I just want to remind everybody what the issue is here. It's not just a few people who live either side of the river. This has come up. If you go out on the doorsteps, I was amazed because it's not just North Town or the town centre. It's people from all parts of town who use it as a cut through to college and to school, to people who use it for their well-being walks, dog walkers, people who are desperate to have a car-free route right from Silk Mills Park and Ride through the Country Park Long Run, through French Weir, right into the heart of town. It's on all of the inward investment brochures for Taunton, the crisscross of bridges, and you've got the Goodland Gardens Bridge there. It's absolutely vital in terms of community, in terms of access to services, in terms of active travel. And it's also key to this town if we want to join up our vital green spaces along the river. We've all agreed we want to make, you know, our future depends on harnessing the power of the river. So to me, there was a massive public campaign that started all of this. The stuff that I've heard, the anti stuff, doesn't chime with what I hear out there. I know people out there are desperate, and I'm just very passionate that we don't let them down. This is, people have referred to it as the People's Bridge. They want their bridge back, and we have the power to do so for a tiny, you know, relatively small sum of money. And there's budgets for park improvements, there's budgets for other things. This is about us putting Taunton back with its bridge for the people and communities.
Judging by the number of people who've had their hands up, this is going to be another long debate, I'm afraid. Councillor Stenthorpe.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, just coming on the back of Councillor Ellis there, the Goodlands Garden Bridge. The number of people who commented over the last year or so about the loss of the bridge has been huge. And I know, I mean, yes, you can sit and shake your head in here, but these are people from my ward as well, which is Comitro. And Comitro isn't right next to that bridge, but a lot of people use it. I use it personally, I used it a lot in the past, and the bridge was always busy. And one of the key reasons that bridge was busy is because it's cyclists only, pedestrians only, and people in mobility scooters or young mums with babies. It doesn't have cars. And the other two road bridges, I have to say, I'm not comfortable cycling across. In particular, the one at Tangier, because those traffic lights are not nice. So you have to go over there to try and get to French Weir. It's a problem. So the bridge is something that was unique to the town. It's liked by lots of people. And yes, originally the quotes of 500,000, yeah, that scared me. I thought that was just out of our reach. But coming in at half or less than half, something that's going to last over 100 years, given that, yes, the county council didn't invest properly in that bridge in the first place and didn't maintain it. And shame on them for that. But this bridge will last. And it's important that we do put it back.
Thank you. Councillor Tuskini.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just going to say how I find it. Thank you very much, by the way, sir. I didn't catch your name when you went up, but thank goodness someone else other than myself is saying this. I'm going to say how I find it. I think this bridge is being pushed to the fore because a promise was made by a group of local politicians and now need to see it through to save face. This is a complete waste of money. We have a bridge 150 yards at most, maybe 200 yards at most, up either side. There is absolutely no necessity to spend this sort of money when people who can walk and people who have access to walking aids and all things, it's not such a big distance to go. It will only benefit a very few. We have other priorities that I think this town needs and deserves, and things have already been mentioned. This equates to a good £250,000 if you think the money that we've already spent, plus an extra just over 200 grand when we have to do all the additional stuff and other fees that will come into it. So you're looking at £250,000. You've got £2 million being spent on the bridge up the road to widen it, to make it safe for cyclists and all that sort of stuff. I think the optics of the public, I think you've misread the public completely. If people were so devastated, why did less than 200 people turn up to a consultation that went on for a little while? I would suggest most of those are members of a group that were promised the bridge. And the fact is that this is nearly probably 2% on the council tax precept, which could reduce the council tax precept even further. The fact that seal money is being is in the discussion and being potentially taken away from the areas that that money was actually given to, places like Cumitro and other new build developments. And this goes back to my point at the very beginning when this town council came in. Areas get forgotten, and areas will be stripped of what they should have had to help build those cohesive infrastructure and communities, and they will go on priorities of politicians and other people who don't give a stuff about where that money came from. That's where that money should go to, and this is a complete waste of money. And if you do go ahead with it, fine, you can justify it however you want, but remember the public will want to know further, and I hope you can explain yourself.
Thank you, Councillor Faschini. Could I just ask members of the public just to keep quiet during this debate, because the comments are being heard? Thank you very much. That takes me on to Councillor Lester.
Thank you, Chair. I've got two more general points. Whilst I support the big bridge being replaced, I just wonder, have we gone back to Somerset Council now that the cost has halved to see if they may now be interested in helping us again? And also talking about the 166 or 200 or so responses, I have no barometer for how that compares to responses to other surveys within town. I know prior to my engagement in the council, my filling in of online forms to answer questions on this sort of thing was precisely nil. So I imagine that, you know, I wasn't the only apathetic person, and I just wonder, do we have any barometer for how this compares to other surveys and other responses? Because whilst 166 doesn't sound a lot, is it a lot by comparison to others? Thank you.
Come back on that. No, I haven't gone back to Somerset Council in terms of understanding that, obviously with the FRP bridges, whether they would be interested. I think it's important to understand whether Taunton Town Council is interested in committing to consider this, but it's something I can go back to them if councillors wish me to do so. In terms of the survey responses, I think it compared quite favorably. Obviously, there was the community review, which was done earlier in the year, and that was close to 600. So in terms of, I think we had a shorter window. We didn't promote this one as actively as the community review was done. So I think 166 on balance, I felt was quite good. I think with consultations, ideally you'd like to see more than, you know, in terms of the population of the town. Sometimes it can be difficult. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. Councillor Furman.
Thank you. Yes, I think I would want to vote for going for the bridge because it is an asset that everyone within the town can use, and it does provide just that more fluid access to either French Weir Park, going to the museum. It can connect you to sort of that over the towards Wood Street car park, and I just feel like it would be a good benefit, you know, for everyone into the town, not only just as an access bridge, but as others have said, that there aren't any traffic, there's no traffic on it. So it gives a good chance for, you know, a more relaxing route going between different places in town, rather than having to go across bridges that have lots of, you know, cars and rest of traffic.
Thank you, Councillor Furman. Councillor Toos.
Rather sort of mundane point in question really for Marcus to remind me was, you mentioned the boring thing there, the boring of holes, not boring debate. Just to be absolutely sure, that boring is for what? It's not going to throw up any other particular problems that will then lead to further costs, is it? Can you just remind me what the point of that was?
Thank you, Councillor Matthews. Yeah, I think it's based on the substructure information, I think they only went down to around 5 metres, and then I think there's the foundations information, so it will help us inform. There's 3 different options that could be done in terms of the foundations. There's these micro helix cabling that can be done, which is apparently the most cost-effective solution. There's another solution, and then there's the putting in completely new foundations, which would obviously cost more. So I think the boreholing is just to give us further assurance over the foundations before we go out to tender, and then so we can inform any potential contractors. The engineer did say when I spoke to earlier on the phone that the FRP model will support the use of the existing foundations that are in place, I think, rather than the alternative because of the weight and various things in terms of the configuration. I hope that can reassure us a bit. Just in terms of the point that was made about the SIL funding, obviously the proposal I talked about in terms of we can replenish the SIL funding and create a community infrastructure pot, so that it doesn't necessarily need to be seen as taking away from an existing pot that's being built up. Perhaps that, you know, we know that through the stewardship working group there are going to be particular demands on that funding to deliver the community infrastructure going forward as that development builds out in the next few years. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. Councillor Packer-Hughes.
Chair, just as I used to live in the French River area until a couple of years ago, I felt a particular kind of grief when that bridge went. I used it daily. My kids used it daily as their route to school, as the safest, cleanest route to get there away from traffic. As in just in terms of mental health, it was a joy to walk that route rather than going through town alongside trucks and lorries and buses zooming along. It does make a big difference. Yes, there are routes that people can get across the river. They are enough, but it can be better. And as a council, we have to think, do we want to provide just enough, or do we want to provide an experience that is better for our residents if we have the facility to do that? In terms of SIL money, Section 106 money, as someone who was very involved in French River Park for a long time in terms of getting money to improve that area, I was told back then by Taunton Deane, as it was back then, that there was never going to be money to improve that area because the area had already been developed. There was very little capacity for building developments that would then contribute more SIL or Section 106 money for those more developed town centre areas. So those assets that we already have, that we enjoy, will depreciate over time. There isn't the money to replace them, to build new ones. So we have to look at actually accessing money from the wider area to improve some of the older, more established areas in town. This is one of the opportunities to be able to do something for the centre of town that won't be funded by the developments that will happen on the external parts of town. But we, as has been suggested, we can replace that money over time. It's just that money is available now. We could access SIL money to make an iconic project happen that will benefit the well-being of the residents across Taunton, not just the French River area, for a really, really long time.
Thank you, Councillor Packer-Hughes. Next is Councillor Smith-Roberts.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I just have a question in relation to the budget. Can you remind me, is it coming from this year's budget or is it in next year's, or the budget that we've just approved?
Yeah. Thanks.
There's 114,000 in capital projects remaining in this year, and there's a £77,000 earmark reserve from the service improvement plan. So those two together could cover the cost, but it would be better to use the SIL and replace that as a separate earmark reserve, because the SIL money it's conditional, and that money that we could put aside would have no conditions attached to it.
Thank you for that clarity. My own personal view on Goodlands Garden Bridge is that I've kind of always been slightly neutral on it, in the fact that where I represent, I don't get the feedback that other people in the room necessarily get. You know, if you live on Taunton East and Taunton South side, in my view, is that you may use it slightly as you go about the town, but it's not there kind of in your face every day to kind of use. I'm not sure whether in my nearly 40 years of life, but I've actually gone across that bridge myself. My mum may able to tell you who's in the room now whether I went across it as a child. But I don't think that I've actually, as an adult, taken that route. I've always used other routes around town. So there is that kind of part of me that goes, behaviour can be modified and changed. We've seen that with the closure as an example of St James's Street, where traffic changed its behaviour when it was closed. So actually, have people, whilst this bridge haven't been in use, has their behaviour changed to use other routes, and are those routes more acceptable to use? I know that some people may say that they don't feel safe in walking or cycling on those paths, but they are there to be used. However, when I sit and think about, okay, how do we then finance it? With what our financial officer has advised us, I go, do you know what, steel has got a limited lifespan. It has to be spent by a certain date. Are we sat here as an authority going, what else can we spend it on by those set dates? And here is another ready project that actually individuals within the town want to have. Yes, 166 people only responded, but actually in consultations, you don't necessarily see that many of that. I waxed lyrical about toilets, and actually we only had 200 people respond to that. When we look at actually likes on our pages though, and we see how people interact in a different way that isn't through filling on an online survey, I would suggest that we look at clicks and likes. Actually, we do get probably a bigger response to that, and I think I've seen that on social media. I'm going to listen to the rest of the debate before I make up my mind, because I can actually fall either way. So I'd be interested in others' views.
Taking two last points. Firstly, Councillor O'Donnell, and then Councillor Solly, and then I will close the debate and we'll move to a vote. Councillor O'Donnell.
Thank you, Chair. I had a couple of questions and a few comments. I think my first question was answered by Marcus, so thank you, Marcus. Because looking at the new design of the bridge, I was concerned, being a flat bridge, whether it would given sufficient clearance above the river, because it is a navigable part of the river, whereas Goodlands was curved, and so you're happy that the River and Canal Trust are happy with the clearance.
Spoken directly to the Canal and River Trust, that would come as part of the bridge, but the clearance would be similar to what was there before, so I would imagine they would.
Oh, I thought it was a metre less.
It was slightly less, but the engineer assured me that it wouldn't be an issue, but yeah, that would have to be current.
I think it certainly needs investigating. I'm also a bit, I'm starting to question it myself. I think from the responses, looking at the first response that we received was about somebody saying that they couldn't get to French Weir surgery because they had to go along Staple Grove Road. Now, they didn't really say where they were coming from, but I'm guessing they're starting from the town and would have gone across the town bridge. And of course, now they can go down the north side of the river to French Weir, so they don't have to go down the Staple Grove. Now, I do realise, which Brenda said earlier, that that is a permissive only. It could close at any point, and we are probably expecting it to close at some stage over the next few years as developments come and go. But I think the aim of the council is that we will push to keep it open. So that resident can go straight across the town bridge and then straight across the north side of the river to their doctor's surgery. So I'm wondering whether we are now basing a decision on skewed data because the consultation started before that path was opened. And then also thinking about, well, in terms of comments, I am starting to question it because, well, at the time, Goodlands Garden Bridge was the fourth bridge across the Taunton, and it was the last bridge before French Weir. But that's not the case now, and both the town bridge and the new bridge have very good accesses into Goodlands Garden. They've got that lovely pedestrian ramp, they're wide pedestrian spaces on both bridges, and as someone mentioned earlier, you can get to Hickley's. I know Councillor Furman said that all people can use the bridge, but I am beginning to wonder just how many people will use the bridge, because, for instance, if I'm coming down to the town from Robarton, I will come down Station Road, I'll come down to Wood Street, and then I'll probably just cross the town bridge and get to Goodman's Gardens. I wouldn't think of going along Wood Street and then over the new bridge. I'll take the shortest route, and I think most pedestrians, when they're walking, take the path of least distance or least resistance. So I am thinking that actually it's probably not necessary to put back. And thank you, Mr. Larkham, by the way, Giuseppe. So I do agree with you. When we first started talking about this, yes, I missed Goodman's Garden Bridge. I thought it was lovely, lovely bridge. It had a beautiful design. That curve was beautiful. We're not going to replace that. That design has gone. That image has gone. What's going back is going to be modern. It's going to be a modern design, and it's going to be compared to modern specifications. So when it first went, I was walking across the town bridge, and yes, I got to the town bridge, I looked down the river, and suddenly the river has opened up, and I've suddenly realized just how beautiful the river is, especially along Goodlands Gardens, you know, with the banks of the river lapping up. And I did have started to question whether actually a new bridge there will spoil that aspect, and actually whether it is now damaging a really good view. Goodlands Garden Bridge looked beautiful when it was there, but we're not going to get that back. That's gone. That will never return. And so I think we could make more use of that open river when we do have very good access to either side of Goodlands with the new bridge. I think my comment was there, you know, I worry that we're no longer be able to see the river for all the bridges we put over it. If we do go for, I'm probably going to abstain, but if we do go for it, I certainly wouldn't want to see precept money spent.
Well, thank you, Councillor O'Donnell. One final point from Councillor Solly, and then we'll move to a vote.
I have to say, spent so many hours on this. It came to committee, now obviously coming to full council, and there's been lots of members of the public come. We've gone over lots of details. It's been so fascinating finding out, how the old bridge used to, be built. Obviously, the new materials that are great, in today's world. But I have to, upon this meeting tonight, I'm kind of echoing what Councillor O'Donnell's actually saying. Whether, and also what Fed said. So in areas of Taunton, do they get much use of it? And I fully understand that more locally to the bridge, you'd use it more often. But when the bridge got, first designed, it obviously had a use to get to a set area. But since the refurb on the brand new bridge, and also the other bridge that goes to the museum and then further down again, I don't think there's a need for it now, and that's just my opinion. But I think since it's been removed, and has people missed it? Have they just gotten to rhythm to go around to the other bridge? Is there a need for the expense to spend on this? So that's just my comment.
Thank you, Councillor Solly. I'd now like to move to a vote, please. The members to consider the following recommendation from the Planning Committee. Resolved to recommend to full council, Taunton Town Council supports in principle commissioning the replacement of the Goodlands Gardens footbridge. Do I have a proposal, please? Councillor Furman, and do I have a seconder? Councillor, it's Councillor Isaacs. The light shining in your face. Thank you very much, Councillor Isaacs, seconded. Show of hands, please. All those in favour, and you need to count the hands, I think. This one. 8 in favour. All those against. 5 abstentions. Thank you. I declare that vote carried. So we will move to the next stage then, Marcus. Thank you very much. It's proving to be quite a long meeting. I'm trying to let everybody have their say, but if we can speed up the debates to follow, I'd be very grateful.
So don't you know?
Do you want, we'll need to ask that question. The question has been raised as a supplementary. Sorry?
It was just to add where you want to use the funds from. Do you want to?
Do you want to use the SIL fund money? Is that a simple yes or no? Right. The proposal is that we use the SIL fund money and then replenish it subsequently. All those in favour of using the SIL fund money in the first instance. How many against? Oh, four. And how many abstain? Well, that's carried. Thank you very much. We now move on to item 14, another exciting project, the Paul Street Public Conveniences. We call upon now Councillor Nick O'Donnell to introduce the item. Shall we have a break?
Of the working group.
Okay, I'm going by what's on my crib sheet. You can't vote on the debate, Nick, when you come back. Could have a break. Would you like a break, or do you just want to carry on? Well, if we have a break, the meeting will end even later. So, if everybody's okay, we carry on. I am now call on Councillor Roberts, who's going to introduce this particular item, Paul Street Public Conveniences.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to introduce this. As the Chair of the Public Toilet Working Group, my grand title that I've got because of my passion alongside others in this room for our public toilets here in Taunton. Bringing forward the paper on Paul Street. You can see the paper that was sent out earlier on today or yesterday in relation to what we're looking to propose. And we've got the 5 recommendations here in front of us. For clarity, we don't own these toilets. Originally, coming up 2 years ago, when we were looking at what we wanted to do in relation to the toilets, there wasn't an ambition at that time for Taunton Town Council to take them on. However, as part of the working group, we kind of had lots of feedback and realised that as a town council, there is a need for more toilets in Taunton. And here in front of you is about working with Somerset Council. You've got the heads of terms in here in Appendix 1 to look to take on a lease to take them on. They're not in good condition. They were already closed by Somerset Council prior to its decision to divest its ability to do public toilets because of the condition that they've been left in. So what we would like to do is for us here tonight to approve the project work to proceed, to take on undergoing quotes, looking at finalising designs. There is a question for us here in relation to providing temporary toilets. Again, I'm happy to listen to the views of the room in relation to temporary toilets. All I would say is just think about the location there. It is on a hill. It would, or slight incline, hill might be a strong word for it. But it would be difficult to locate temporary toilet in that locality. Yes, we could look to undertake a licence, but just bear in mind the location and how we would do it in relation to safety. I'm not saying we can't do it. It would just be a little bit more difficult to do. And actually, we do know that people have gone without for a little while. I'm not saying that they should go without longer for spending a penny, but actually there are some other areas for us to consider or other toilets for them to use. We did have a good public consultation. We do know that our toilets garner interest over the Christmas holidays. Our comms officer sent me a link to say that one of our toilet posts had been viewed 53,000 times. Wow. So you just wanted me to share the excitement as to how much people do take an interest. So I would love us to proceed in this project. I do understand that we don't own it, but not everything always has to be about what we own. It's about what we can do and about the terms that we agree. And actually having toilets that we know people want to use in a location next to the library that we know does so many great things for the public, and potentially the opportunity to put in changing places toilet here again just allows people to go about and, you know, hopefully spend more time and potentially more money in our local businesses.
Thank you very, very much, Councillor Smith-Roberts. Can I take any other comments? I think Councillor Ellis first, and then Councillor Packard-Hughes, and then Councillor Stainforth.
Really glad we kicked up a fuss about this synopsis and assets back in the autumn and for previous to that, and I'm so glad the public toilet working group has picked it up and working with our great officers. We're now at the point where we can move forward. It's really urgent. You know, if you've ever had to spend any of the time at the library, it's an interesting challenge. If you can get to M&S, if there's no queue in time, that's an interesting one. It's ridiculous. We've got this fantastic library, all these services, people coming into to Taunton. Welcome to Taunton. Oh, I'm terribly sorry. You have to cross your legs, and some people can't. So I think this is brilliant. I really want us to get temporary toilets in there if at all possible. So thank you. Let's crack on with this.
Thank you very much. Councillor Packard-Hughes next.
We are very excited within the toilet working group that this should actually happen. We know that there is an appetite within the local community, with visitors, for this particular location to come back into use. I would just add that personally, I don't think we should actually provide temporary toilets. It's a facility that isn't open at the moment. The site really isn't ideal in terms of the slope. I have to walk up every day with shopping. It's definitely a hill. I think it's a cost that we could not incur for a service that is not currently in use, and better to wait until we have something grand to unveil, in my personal opinion.
Thank you. Councillor Stainforth.
I think this is so important for the town, and I've had some direct feedback from local elderly residents, certainly within my ward, who, and in a couple of cases actually, who've stopped going into town. They used to go into the library regularly, and they can no longer go to the library because there are no toilets. And these are people who, that was their sort of 1 or 2 days out a week, was going to the library, which they feel they can't go to anymore because there's no facilities. Having a library with no toilets does seem rather bizarre, and that the use was high. So I think it's so vital. And I don't know about the temporary ones. If there's a problem in terms of slopes, the cost probably is going to be more prohibitive than anything else. It would be nice to have temporary ones, but if it's too big a cost, then I don't think we can incur that. What we should do is look to speed up getting the new toilets done.
Thank you, Councillor Stainforth. Councillor Tully.
Yeah, that is the main toilet in Taunton. That's where the main car parks are. And I disagree. If the county so much want to help us to do it, why not have it by the library? That's straight there, that's flat. There's no problem to put a temporary one there at the moment. But to not have any at all, you know, you get out your car, you come into Taunton, where's the toilets? And where do they go? Oh, there's one down by the castle. Most people don't know where it is. Oh, why not go to the Minster? There's one there as well. It's staffed. You know, we've got to think what people need if we want people to come to us.
Thank you, Councillor Tully. Councillor Toosey.
Thanks for adding the Y. Yeah, pleased to see this coming forward, and I agree that the temporary toilets, while nice, are probably not needed because the facility is not open, so I'm pleased to forego those. What I would say as an observation is that these toilets, where they are, and because of the way they work, where they're just a single cubicle, I know that they do get like extremely foreboding and extremely unpleasant. So I know bringing in-house cleaning will help, but also as part of the refurb, we really must try to prevent those toilets becoming like when people will walk to Marks and Spencer's rather than use them because they're, you know, they've gone back to the bad state they were in. But I'm sure we can look at ways to improve them.
Thank you, Councillor Deacon.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, I'm in agreement. Of course, we should be doing this. I'm also in agreement with, I think, the majority of colleagues. I don't think we should be putting temporary toilets in place at the moment for reasons that have been outlined. A quick question for the officer team is there's kind of two parts. There's the tender and cost associated with that, about £3,000, and then there's the project itself. To hearing Judy Stainthorpe's, sorry, Judy, that's full name, Judy, Councillor Stainthorpe's comments around being able to achieve this as quickly as possible. From a budgeting point of view, have we got budget in year that we could utilise to fund the initial tender works so that we're ready to go, ideally with a project on the 1st of April once our new budget is in place? Is that a fair understanding of the budgetary provision? I think it would be great to get going on this as quickly as possible, and given the amazing work that we've done on Cannon Street and Hampton Court, we probably have a bit of a blueprint that means we can deliver this project quicker than the last one, which is always great.
So there was money that was put aside in the budget, so we've transferred some money over, but I don't know if Megan wants to go into more some detail about it.
No, I was just going to say there is money aside for the street, especially if we don't go with the temporary toilets option. Then there would be money there.
Councillor Ellis?
Just very quickly, a very telling point in the excellent report was about public health implications of people currently defecating on the street. That's why I think we need temporary toilets. There's an urgent need. If you're sorry, but if you've got a bladder problem and you're elderly or whatever, you can't, there is a need, and it should never have been shut in the first place. It was absolutely criminal. Okay. And we desperately need something there. And the public health thing, surely that must sway people. There's a public health issue now because of the lack of toilets. Surely that's the reason to pop in temporary.
Thank you. Any other comments? Thank you very much. Now, I'd like to take one item out of the proposal and vote on that first, because there's quite a lot of comment on this, and that's point 3. Councillors to provide a steer on if temporary toilets should be provided in the interim, with an indication how long these toilets should be supplied for and from what budget line. I'd like to take a vote on that first, and then take a vote on the balance of this. So on the question of temporary toilets, how many, could I have a proposal please for temporary toilets? Councillor Ellis. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Tully. How many in favour of temporary toilets? 5. Got everybody? How many against? 6 or 7? 7. Yes. So we voted against temporary toilets. That takes me back to the rest of the proposal, and I'll read out what we're voting on. Members to consider and agree. Officers to continue negotiations with Somerset Council around the heads of terms, with delegation to the clerk to enter into a lease. Point 1. Councillors to approve the project work to proceed, including seeking independent quotes and finalising designs. Point 4, to note the outcome of the public consultation exercise. Point 5, to note the outcome of the feasibility study carried out by the surveyor. So on those 4 points, do I have a proposer? Councillor Patrick Hughes. Seconder? Councillor Smith Roberts. All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? So I take it that the motion is carried for points 1, 2, 4 and 5, and point 3 against. Thank you very much. And that takes us on to, I think, the last item on the agenda on this marathon. Hope you all feel that people have had their say, which is very important on these very significant issues. So item number 15, procurement of vehicles and equipment to support the in-house revision of grounds maintenance services. Members to consider a recommendation from the Operations and Assets Committee considering this issue at their meeting on 9th of January 2025. This is required to be considered by the full council due to the leases involved and in compliance with the scheme of delegation. I now call on Councillor Nick O'Donnell to introduce the item.
Thank you very much, Chair. It's really late. Let's keep this very brief. So this came to Operations and Assets on Thursday. We had a good discussion around this one, and we all came to the conclusion that this was necessary equipment in order for our grounds teams and our maintenance teams and grounds works teams to really deliver the good quality parks and open spaces and the sports pitches. You know, that is what we are bringing and delivering to Taunton. Yes, it does include the lease of diesel vehicles, but as we recognised in the committee, that for what we're wanting these vehicles to do, there is no EV alternative suitable for the capacity of work that we're trying to do, whilst we'd much rather not have to rely on fossil fuels. We do recognise that actually this is a pragmatic decision, and so I do. We supported it in the operations and assets, and I'm hoping we'll support it now.
Thank you, Councillor O'Donnell. Councillor Ellis has her hand up.
I'll try to be brief. So I can't support this because of the inclusion of the diesel, because I'm afraid I've seen too many videos and read too many websites about all different alternatives, EV, different configurations. According to Top Gear, 2025 is the year of the EV pickup truck. You can lease pickup trucks. There's one, the Ford one, I think can tow as much as a diesel one. So I think that there are other options, and I would have liked the specification to actually have looked at, let's try and do this all electric. So I'm not convinced we have to bring in diesel vehicles. I know for a fact you can retrofit really old, heavy, nasty diesel bangers, great big fat lorries, massive things, much bigger than anything you're thinking of buying. You can actually retrofit them. So I do appreciate, Paul, all the other work you've done. So some of the equipment will be electric, but there are electric tractors, there are electric mowers, there are electric trucks of different kinds. So I do appreciate the bits that you're doing that are electric. I absolutely appreciate that, but I can't, because I just feel we could do this differently. Imagine if we had become the first town council to have an all entirely net zero grounds maintenance operation, what a USP that would be. And I'm just not convinced that we couldn't do that. So I do appreciate all of the work that you've done, but for that reason I can't support it.
Could I ask Paul to comment on that, please?
Yes, certainly. I would love to be in a position to say we're all electric. You know that. I share your passion and do look at all the options that are available to us at this point in time, bearing in mind we have to deliver this service contractually from the 1st of April, but we also need to get prep, familiar with our equipment, get that equipment up, running, service, ready to go before that time. There aren't the options available to us at this point in time. I've seen Top Gear, I've seen what's it called, where they retrofit electric systems into old Series 1 Land Rovers and old sports cars. The cost of that is phenomenal. You're looking at 60 to 80,000 pounds per vehicle, and yes, it's worth doing on those vehicles because of their rarity value. I can't see us as a council taking that route. The Ford vehicle is not available, the one that you talk about, which is a hybrid model. It's electric and petrol. It's not a diesel, it's electric and petrol option. The miles per gallon overall on that on testing are phenomenally atrocious because it relies on that hybrid model, electric, using the petrol engine to recharge the electric system. That vehicle, based on the proposal we put forward, is not available until well after our contract start date. And we would certainly look at that if we were looking at expanding the service in the future as those models become available. The same with the technology. As it becomes available, that's the route I would prefer to take if it's affordable and we have sufficient budget to allow that, which what I put forward for budget would allow us to take that route as soon as we can. At this point in time, it's not there.
Thank you, Paul. Councillor Smith-Roberts.
Thank you, Chair. I was actually at the meeting where we discussed this in operations and assets, And for me, I think as a council, we have shown great ambition when it comes to what we want to do when it comes to climate change and look to limit our impact or to make conscious choices that do limit the impact. However, I think that ambition, as Paul has described, is ahead of what actually the market can actually do for us. We need to be able to provide these services. I think from what I recall, the lease is set out so that should technology catch up with that ambition that we've got, then we can actually change the vehicles that we want to use. And actually by making the conscious choice now to buy vehicles that have like the double cab and can tow the vehicles all in one go, we are trying to limit our impact and use of diesel by getting everyone onto site all in one go. So for me, I think where we sit in 2025 is that we go with this as it is, and we constantly look to scrutinise us and check ourselves as to can we do it better when technology catches up.
Thank you, Councillor Smith-Roberts. Councillor Solly?
Pretty much the same as on Councillor Smith-Roberts, actually. Yeah, it's kind of a thing at the moment. It's in 2025, currently what's on the market. And I think current ambition of the technology is the balance at the moment. And I think currently our ambition that we want to be electric is up here, but technology is down here, sadly. So it's like I said, I would love for us to be a green maintenance team across to do all of our wards. I'd absolutely love that. And I think for an ambition for us to actually achieve that by, a certain time would be brilliant. But, I'd like to think that, over the coming years when technology improves, that we're on the forefront to put orders in for those items. And I know probably Paul would agree on me with that one as well. But yeah, thank you.
Councillor Tully?
Yeah, electric is great, but a friend of mine who works for Thwaites dumpers, and they're still trying to kick themselves to get it working because they can't hold the power. The same with the tractors can't hold the power. That wasn't the question I wanted to ask. I wanted to ask why we needed 2 4-wheel drive vehicles of that size. It seems a bit extravagant for us to have 2. One I can understand, but 2 of them, why would we need 2? We're a town. We're not in the countryside.
You'll see the structure of the two brands services laid out in the previous proposals, which council agreed to go into the budget. There are 2 brands maintenance teams to be split across the town because the number of parks we've got and future proofing against things such as Orchard Grove and other green spaces that might come to us. 1 team per truck with a trailer, 1 with the tractor, 1 with the mower. The tractor has a mower attachment as well. It builds us the resilience in to cross over, or if a piece of equipment was out of use, and it allows both those teams to be working consecutively at different parts of the town.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. That's the answer my question, but diesel, I'm afraid.
Councillor Toosey?
Just quickly on the things, I'm sorry, I'm scanning the report as quickly as I can. Is there provision at the new location at Galmington to store all this proposed equipment, or just, yeah, okay. And can I just speak up for Councillor Ellis, who continuously reminds us to do the best we can? I do find it frustrating that in the Western world, we're still, as a Liberal Democrat council, we are still hamstrung by this, and we must acknowledge that this conversation cannot keep going on, because it really can.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, practically, I understand, Paul, and where we are with that. It was just to voice that, really.
Thank you very much. I'd now like a proposal, please, for item number 15, procurement of vehicles and equipment to support the in-house division of grounds maintenance services. Can I have a proposer is Councillor O'Donnell, and the seconder, Councillor Lester. All those in favour? Any against? Any abstaining? I declare that resolution carried. No. The meeting has now closed, 9:35. Before you go, I just want to say a huge thank you to all councillors, Taunton Town councillors and visitors from Somerset Council and from members of the public. Our meetings don't normally go on for anything like long.